Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the program. It's here, the end of September. I'm here to wake you up. That's it. Hi. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show. I'm Jeff Gerstmann, your host for this week's installment of the show. We're talking about video games this week. It's time to get into the game business. The business of play. What's up with the It looks like fun and games, but behind the scenes is Hi. How's everyone doing? It's September 30th, 2025. It's been a really kind of a wild week in the news department for video games. And we'll of course get into all of that. I have been playing Ghost of Yotei for off and on here for the past couple of weeks, and it's it's funny. So I recorded a video that I was like, oh, this is going to run when the review embargo was up, and the reviews ran last week, and then I reread the guidelines for their kind of specific embargo, and it was like, if you're not doing scored reviews and you're doing this and this, then you need to hold it until I think tomorrow or until October 1st. And then as I was recording the video, there was a cutscene in there that had like kind of a cool story moment that now I'm like, now that I've had a week to second guess it, I'm like, should I cut that out? Should I re-record the whole thing? What should I do about this? And so, like, I'm in a weird place with Ghost of Yotei. The weirdest place I'm in with the Ghost of Yotei is that it is very hard to play a game about cutting motherfuckers' necks when you have a lot of children around. That has been that has been the leading factor working against me when it comes to playing more of Ghost of Yotei. It's really good. If you liked Ghost of Tsushima, this is more of that. And it is incredibly well acted, and like I think the cutscenes and the reasons for this revenge tale and the way it unfolds and all of that stuff, I think, is really engaging. It has some fun side stuff, and you know, as you're kind of filling out the skill tree in almost like a Far Cry like way. And by that I mean there are points on the skill tree that are like, now you can assassinate bigger dudes, just like Far Cry 3 was having. It doesn't feel as so. Ghost of Tsushima, great game. However, the thing I would continually run into, or the thing I ran into in that game, is I wanted to do all the side stuff. And so you reach a point where you have played a ton of that game without moving the story forward very far. And by the time I got to the next act of the story and it unlocked the next portion of the map and filled it full of a lot of the same style of side stuff that I'd already been doing for hours and hours, I was like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I kind of had to step away from it and come back to it in kind of chunks after that. This game, I don't feel like there's a fair amount of side stuff in here. And I've been doing more of it as I can find it, but it does not feel bloated. Is a loaded word, right? Is Ghost of Tsushima a bloated game? I don't know that I would say so. I think it has a lot of stuff in it. It just, it's one of those games that I think falls victim to, if you have been playing a lot of open world games lately, this is another one of those with all of the goods and bads that come with that. And so, when it came out and some of the other stuff, like, that stuff just it gets repetitive very quickly, and that was maybe its downfall. And so I am still like maybe 6 or 7 hours in on Ghost of Yotei, and I have not felt that feeling of like, dude, all of this side stuff is so rubber stamped across the landscape. And there are things that you'll do multiple times, right? There are hey, the golden bird is going to lead you to secret stuff, and like, oh, here's a hot spring, and I can look at this lady's butt for a split second as she gets in, and then I get more maximum life. That's great. And so there are things that you'll do multiple times. There's, the bamboo strikes that you'll, hit button sequences to cut bamboo and all of that. But the story itself is very, I think it's classic martial arts film type stuff. It's the opening of the game is your family getting murdered, and then you going, I'm going to find the 7 people that did this, or the 6 people that did this, and I'm going to fucking kill them. And then the game is you going and getting your revenge. As seen in Kill Bill. No, that's where they got it from. Kill Bill originated that. No. So yeah, and I think it's a very effective. I think it's something that's like very effective in a video game as well, because it's the sort of thing that like you're finding out more information about the different targets as you go, because you're kind of meeting people and interrogating them and asking them questions about like, tell me more about the Oni, and then they'll tell you about that specific member of the party and all of that. And you get out there and you do your business, and along the way things happen. That's my condensed version of the script. Along the way things happen. You get into some shit. You meet some people. Stuff goes sideways. Hey. And I think it's very effective at telling that style of story. At least it has been so far. And so it's easy to kind of get wrapped up in that part of the story. I'm frustrated by Ghost of Yotei from an accessibility standpoint for much the same reason I was frustrated by Assassin's Creed Shadows and a couple of other Ubisoft games as of late, and that it is very big on this style of combat that I've been kind of talking about for a couple of weeks because it's been on my mind. But it is a game about you blocking or parrying incoming attacks and making sure that you are doing the right thing. And so unblockable attacks will have a red glint on them. Parryable attacks will have a blue glint on them. And attacks that must be parried or you will be disarmed have a yellow glint on them. There's no option to change this, and half the video I recorded that now that I'm talking I'm now talking myself out of running that video and recording something separate. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. It's a bad set of colors from a combination perspective, and on top of that, there is nothing you can do to change it. Their answer, their attempt to kind of solve for this is that the colored glints have slightly different shapes, which is something I did not know until I was recording the video and like digging through the menus. And if you go into the tutorial part, it says like, oh, the red one is a cross and this one is vertical and this one is horizontal, and which is something that I feel like the game did not illustrate or convey at all. But in my time with it since then, it's not enough. Like attaching it to the color is actually still like a pretty big problem. And I wish that they would just put button prompts above the characters' heads or an option for that or something to just like sidestep it completely and just be like, okay, yeah, like these need to be called out way more obviously. These need to be like extremely separate from the color coded stuff in order to work. Like a lot of other games, it has some pretty adaptive difficulty settings, and so you can widen the parry windows out. So it's not as bad as Assassin's Creed Shadows was in this particular regard, because the only way for me to play Assassin's Creed Shadows was to set it to the dumbest, lowest difficulty setting, like imaginable. And that game felt dumb easy. And I lost interest with Assassin's Creed Shadows because it was just like, it's too easy. I can't play it the way it was intended to be played for this because of my fucking bum eyes. And the only way I can play it is to like suck all of the tension out of all of the combat. And this isn't fun at all. Like eventually I just hit a wall with it where I'm just like, I'm not like, this is a beautiful game and I'm not enjoying it at all. So I walked away from it. This is, this does not feel like I am dumbing down the entire game when you're widening those parry windows, like there is a noticeable effect there. It's still not enough combined with the color stuff. It's still it doesn't actually fix the problem for me at all, and that's really frustrating. So yeah, I don't know. Like the other thing I'll say is that what is it about Sucker Punch? What is wrong with these people? Why do they feel this incredible urge to put a bunch of motion controller shit into their games? These like quaint, not quite one-off things that maybe you do a little too frequently, where you're like, I'm going like this because I'm hammering a sword, and then I'm hitting this button to flip it over, and I'm cooking a fish and I'm doing this, and every time you cook, funnily enough, they put a skip button in after you do it, like I think once or twice, to where if you're just like, there's no game here. It's not like I need to cook it carefully and move the controller just right. When you're starting a fire, you have to do it just right and pull the trigger halfway to blow your breath just right. And like, it's really corny shit. Like, I don't think it adds to the immersion. I think it's like a really dumb, like, it's just like they did it because they could and because they've been doing it. Like, there's someone there who's been at that studio for a very long time who is probably beating the drum for that. No, that's what we're known for. We do the cool stuff with the controller. And it's like, dude, don't. Just don't. Dr. No One in the chat says, isn't it just Sony stuff pushing their features? Like, no, if that were true, then every single first-party game would have an abundance of this stuff. This game really has, like, kind of a lot of it, especially, like, a lot of it's kind of front-loaded because, you know, you're gonna, the first time you upgrade a sword, you're gonna do this thing with it, and the first time you cook a fish at a camp, it's gonna be like, okay, and here's how you do it, and the first time you have to start a fire before you cook the fish, and so it's like back-to-back. Like, I've got to swipe up on the thing to get the sparks to hit, and then I got to do that. Like, it's just stupid. I'm not going to say I get nothing out of doing that. I get less than nothing. Like, it is like, get this out of my face. Like, why are we still doing this? It's so dumb. Like, it is such, like, fakey. There is no immersion on this. Like, I turned the controller sideways and shook it like a paint can. Wow. Like, it's just... At most, you're going like, huh? Like, but then they want you to do it a bunch of times. You're like, this is stupid. Why are we doing it? Like, yeah, I think that stuff is really completely overstayed its welcome. And every time it happens in this game, I just like roll my eyes. I'm just like, I can't believe that like someone thought that this was something that still needed to be in these games. Like, what are you doing? It's so dumb. But like, that's whatever. That's super minor stuff, right? Who cares? At the end of the day, I think the game is really sound from a storytelling perspective. It looks great. I've been playing it. The default setting I thought looked pretty good, but it was locked at 30 and whatever else. And I don't remember it asking me on boot. And the game's been patched. Like a big patch just went out yesterday, so the reviews that ran, I think, all ran before the day one patch hit, but I didn't see anything on their list of changes that seemed like a dramatic change or whatever, but I don't remember being asked, like, what graphics mode I wanted to run it in, and going in and turning it to, like, 60 frames per second with ray tracing and all of that other stuff. Like, oh, I could have been playing it like this way the entire time. What the hell? And it looks fucking awesome. Yeah, it's a really great looking game. They did a really nice job with that. Just artistically as well as I think from a technical perspective, it's got a really nice look to it. And so I would recommend it. Again, that's not like a full review. Like, I haven't finished the game or whatever. Like it's I still have like quite a lot of game left to play. And I'm looking forward to it, except for all of the combat stuff. And I think on top of just the colorblindness, kind of that stuff aside, this has been the game that has really got me thinking all over again about, like, dude, is this it for combat? Is it ever going to get any like better or different than this? Have people just decided this is the most optimized and like best way to do one versus many combat on a controller? and that we're going to be doing this type of like block. Like if you time the block right, it parries and then opens them up for this. And is it just going to be that forever? You know, this kind of like mainstream, like, you know, like you have kind of the stamina based Souls-like stuff. I would put in kind of a different camp, and you could argue that's a different path for this to go down. But I would argue that path is like might be a little too technical for some people. And so, like, in a mainstream sense, if we're not trying to make the difficult stamina whatever game, is this what we're doing? You know? And if I had to, like, point out one more thing about this game that is, like, keeping me from blasting through it in, like, a handful of sittings and having these really long sessions, it is the combat. And I'm not saying the combat is bad. The combat is very good. They have honed it to a point, but I've played 30,000 games like this since Arkham Asylum came out. Some of them very good, some of them very bad, and they're all trying to kind of solve the same problem in much the same ways. And I guess I'm just finding myself like reaching the end of like my enjoyment of that type of system, or like, I guess I just want to see more people trying to do it differently in big budget games, in some of this stuff. And I found myself thinking about shooter controls and how so much of the kind of modern console first person shooter has been really boiled down to effectively the Call of Duty control scheme. You still have the holdouts that are like more Halo derived, I suppose. Though, you know, like, well, Destiny is not a new game at this point anyway, but Destiny defaulted to something that was a little more Halo-esque, and then the first thing I did 10 years ago was set it to Call of Duty controls. So I'm doing it to myself, I suppose, in that particular case. But I found myself thinking about shooter controls and how that is, you know, and I feel differently about shooter controls, where that control scheme, I feel like it makes sense for the controller you are given. I don't know that I would say that there is, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe someone will prove me wrong someday, but I feel like that is in a lot of ways the ultimate form of first-person shooter controls on a console controller. But I don't feel that way about this melee combat. You know, that is just as ingrained, you know, like over the last, 15 years or something? Like, what is it? When did, I mean, I guess that would be an interesting thing to trace back. Was Arkham Asylum 2009? So yeah, 16 years. Do you think that is that the actual? I mean, I think that's certainly the flashpoint for when like everyone went like, oh, dude, this is the way to do this. And every game after that, kind of took from that. I remember it was that Captain America game that I believe we made one Matt Kessler play and talking to him about it. I was like, oh, yeah, this is just, they really put the fucking Batman combat in this game, didn't they? And then from there, it just started happening more and more, and it just became kind of the standard in a lot of ways. Was there a game before that was really doing it in a similar way? That would be an interesting thing to trace back. It's not, off the top of my head, I cannot think of a game that is older than Arkham Asylum that did that in kind of that specific way. And the Arkham system was built originally in a lot of ways to like, okay, we're going to have different types of enemies and you're going to have to confront them in different ways. Like, oh, this enemy you need to swipe your cape at in order to stun him so that you can hit him. And this enemy you need to slide between his legs and do this and to get behind him or whatever else. Like they would have like different buttons for different tactics for different enemy types. Ghost of Yotei, kind of has similar stuff in the weapons selection. And it's really, you can just change weapons on the fly, almost mid-strike. You can pull up the menu and go like, I want to go from one katana to two or whatever else. And, dual katanas will be better than a spear, You will be able to overspeed someone who has a spear. But if someone is coming at you with one sword, you're not strong enough with a sword in each hand to handle that. And so you have to go back to one sword to block without getting kind of staggered. And so they kind of build the system that way. And I think that's really well done for Ghost of Yotei as well. But yeah, I just like, there's just something about this. There's something about this style of combat that I think is really, it's wearing a little thin for me. Like, I'm definitely reaching a point with it where, like, you sit down and you look at it and you're like, okay, yeah. Yep. No, I get it. And it's funny because it's to me, it's not about parries. And I think there's been a lot of discussion about the role of parrying in games. And I was talking about this with Ben on last week's show without saying the words Ghost of Yotei. But parrying is awesome for the same reason that, like, stuffing someone who is trying to slam dunk is awesome. You are straight up denying them and imposing your will upon them and saying, get that weak shit out of here. You know, like someone is coming at you with an attack and you're going, check this shit out, bop, fuck you, and sticking them and laughing about it, you know? And it feels like a very good expression of skillful, of a skillful character who Atsu in the game she is a very skillful warrior. And so, like, all of that stuff, I think, comes together in a way that is incredibly satisfying. So, like, I don't necessarily, you know, like, there's a lot of the parrying discourse was about, like, oh, there's been too much parrying in games. And I don't know that I agree with that. I think it's just the full system around it a lot of the times where you're just like, okay, like now, or building systems that are almost completely reliant on your ability to parry. Maybe that's the actual thing, where you don't always feel like you have great, you don't always feel like you have other alternatives to it. It's just like, no, this is the thing you do. This is always the thing you do. Like, this is your answer to just about any problem. And the ones you can't do, we're going to put a red glow on specifically so that I can't see them. Thanks, guys. You nailed it. God damn it. Anyway, I think you should play Ghost of Yotei. It seems really awesome. I've also been playing a little bit of Megabonk, which is... Okay, it doesn't seem like something that should work for its camera perspective and some of the weird shit around it, but Megabonk is like if someone took a Vampire Survivors and then made it like fully polygonal, and you know, gave you some camera control and whatever that kind of comes with that stuff. It's got a really unique look to it. And I've only played a few rounds of it, but it was a good reminder that, like, for as much as I think a lot of us are saying, you know, I certainly said it probably 2 weeks ago. I probably said it the week that Megabonk was coming out, but I just got around to it. That, like, man, it sure does feel like this whole you know, auto shooting survival, you know, single stick shooter, whatever we want to call them. Just don't call them bullet heaven games because that's so dumb. It feels like that stuff is just kind of run its course, right? But Megabonk is really cool. It has a bunch of different characters in it, one of which I have not unlocked, but it is a skeleton riding a skateboard. I've been playing as, I believe it's a fox dressed up like a wizard. And you are able to jump and slide, and so they have verticality in the levels where you've got these big slopes down, and so you can slide down these hills to get away from enemies or to get closer to treasure chests and open them. And so there's like interesting movement as you're kind of jumping and moving around as well, in conjunction with like you're automatically firing at these nearest targets, and you're getting rocks that spin around you and like all of the other stuff. And yes, Ultra Bad Dude in chat calls out the thing I was about to get to. It's just like, it's one of those games where they're like misspelling stuff for funny reasons, and I don't think that works. It's a little memey in a couple of ways. Meme-ish. In a way that just, I think, does not benefit the game. You could certainly, you know, there are plenty of games that do that to satisfying or interesting effect. I just don't like the way Megabonk uses it is just like, when you pick up a shield, it just says protect, missing the second T. And you're like, okay, whatever, guys. And there's just kind of a lot of that style of like cutesy spelling mistake type thing that you're like, I don't know, are we doing this? We doing this? That's the, but whatever. I like it's got a really interesting look to it, and the upgrades seem pretty cool, and the variety of characters and whatever that it seems like you unlock seems potentially satisfying. I need to spend some more time with it to unlock some more dudes, but it's yeah, it seems like a pretty cool kind of riff on that concept. And I played some Destiny 2. I was like, I've kept it installed for like I uninstalled it and reinstalled it a few months ago. I was like, I should look in on Destiny 2. And I loaded it up, and like a new thing had come out, so it forced me into a mission right away. And so I played the first mission of whatever the kind of new campaign is, and the thing they seem to have added. So for starters, they crushed all the numbers. They did a squash on item levels, and so every like my overall like gear score squashed down to 10 at some point since the last time I played it. I don't know. I don't know if that came with this most recent update, or that could have been 4 updates ago. Who the fuck knows? All I know is that when I fired it up, all my gear was worth 10, and then, yeah, you start finding, a higher level gear at that point, almost immediately, and the numbers crawl up yet again. They added a thing in here, and you are forced to kind of engage with it. And my understanding is that eventually you unlock the ability to do it wherever, which sounds like hell to me. But there are these stations you walk up to, and when you walk up to them and hit the button, you turn into a ball, like an energy ball specifically, and then you roll around, like you were the Metroid lady. And there are little tubes you need to go through, and tiny corridors that you need to use to get from one place to the other. And the ball only lasts for a set number of seconds before you. And if you are not out of the tunnel by then, I guess it will kill you. Just like, it just seems like a really clumsy way to implement that stuff in the first place, but I don't know. It sucks. Like, I don't know. It's just like, why is this here? Like, this adds jack shit to the game. It doesn't look great. It's not fun to engage with. It like, I get that you got to find something to change things up somehow, but Christ, it just seemed like the most. It just seemed like a very empty addition to the game, and I was just like right out of the gate, I'm like, dude, what am I doing? Why am I playing this? But I ended up finishing that mission because I wanted to see the big thing that I think a lot of
stop a truck. I got what you need.
Longtime players have been complaining about is they redesigned some of the menus. When you're not in a mission, they redesigned a few of the menus about how you get into your next mission. And they have created a page called the Portal that looks a lot like any kind of like other games like mission select screen or whatever. It's got the box in the corner that when you figured out what you're going to do, you go select it there and go. And like they're trying to find what they're trying to find is like a way to present shit to you in a sensible manner, right? Because this game has gone 20 different directions over the last decade, and if you haven't been keeping current, you look at it and you're like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm supposed to be doing. And so the Portal seems like it is designed for that. It is designed to kind of point you in the direction of a thing you haven't done yet, or give you like, oh, hey, here's the next step in this quest chain that you were working on. Or here's the campaigns you have available to you that you have not finished. You're on step 7 on this one. You're on step 4 of this. Pick it and launch into the mission and go. And so as a way to kind of keep you focused and moving forward on a thing, it doesn't seem like the worst idea in the world. I think that the reason, from what I'm ascertaining, the reason why people are angry about it is because it just looks like shit. And also, it doesn't, like, it's not very good at showing you any kind of things that are off the beaten path or any kind of, like, side quest type material. It feels like it is very focused on the main campaigns and not much else. You'll have things in the corner that are like, oh, here's some playlists of things you can go do solo, and so they have and I don't know when they added these, but it's like there's a playlist of solo missions that you can go on that like all have timers in the corner, and they're like, if you can finish this with a B ranking or better, you'll get some gear. And I'm like, it feels like them kind of trying to find ways to repurpose parts of the world that are not necessarily part of the current campaigns, and find ways to kind of get you through that again or something. I don't know. Like, I will say that sometimes it feels like that they, like, this stuff all feels like they're trying to tackle some perceived problems. But I would see why a lot of longtime players would look at it and go like, this feels like you just replaced anything and everything with like a half-assed checklist that doesn't even have a bunch of the events in the game on it and whatever else. And so, yeah, it's kind of a strange change. But I don't know, for my, every time they start a season and they go like, you need to spend your seasonal artifact points or whatever, and they're all like weapon specific, like if you hit people and you've got a pistol equipped, then this will do an overshield to this and that, and you will be awakened. And like the number of like bullshit status effects that the Destiny 2 layers onto you at any given time now. Like, oh, you killed a guy with your fist, that means you're awakened for 7 seconds, and if you spec this way, then when an orb of power pops out, it will change your grenade refresh to this and that. And like, you get lost in these menus of trying to figure out, like, what the fuck is any of this fucking do, and why do I fucking care about any of it? Meanwhile, they've, like, squashed all of... I forgot that they did this, but when they added, like, the dark subclass, they changed the, like, old classes into your prismatic class, and you can combine different elements of the different classes instead of just picking, like, no, I want the Arc Titan. Like, I've always wanted the Arc Titan. Leave me alone. Leave me fucking alone. And so just, the further I dug into the menus and speccing the characters and equipping stuff on my gear and all this other stuff, I was just like, fuck this, whatever, I'm done. And so there's your biannual Destiny 2 update, I guess. I don't know. It's really, it just feels like a big weird mess, and the campaign story stuff that is current as you turning into a ball over and over again. I don't want to do any of this, man.
Work it, lady.
Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll get into the news. All right? All right. All right. Where's your money go every month? I mean, you could sit there and stare at your credit card statements and your bank statements every month and go like, okay, well, this went to here, this went to here. Well, hey, what if you had a little bit of help? What if you had something automatically categorizing that sort of stuff for you? So you could get a very easy sense on like, oh, I am eating out too much, or oh, these subscriptions are costing way too much money. That's the power of Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. That's right. You heard that right. Rocket Money can cancel your unwanted subscriptions.
Give me that.
If you've got subscriptions in there that you're like, oh, man, I can't believe I am still paying for this. I need to cancel this. Getting on the phone and getting someone and like going through the phone tree. I'm like, well, what if we gave you this offer on this thing you're not using? And, like all this stuff they put you through just to try to get you to not cancel. It's a hassle. Rocket Money can do that for you. In some cases, you give them some account information and they go off, they can cancel your subscription. If they notice that you're paying too much for a bill, if they go like, hey, your phone bill seems higher than most other people. What's going on here? We think we can lower it. You can give them that same information. They can go off, they will negotiate with your phone company or your satellite radio company or whatever, and, find a way to help lower those bills. And of course, yeah, it'll also show you all your expenses in one place. So you can get a good sense of like where, you know, what are you doing? Are you getting too much pizza delivered to your home? Maybe. And from there, you know, if you're trying to save some money, you can figure out some ways to cut back a little bit. Rocket Money's 5 million members have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, with members saving up to $740 a year when they use all of the app's premium features. You know, you can get alerts if your bills increase in price or if there's weird activity on your accounts. Or, you know, set a budget and it'll let you know if you're close to going over it or if you're doing a good job at staying under it. If you got goals, you can have it analyze your accounts and figure out, hey, what's the best time each month to maybe put a little extra money aside. Rocket Money can do all of that for you. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/JeffG today. That's rocketmoney.com/JeffG. Again, rocketmoney.com/JeffG. You hear about this Electronic Arts thing? Holy shit. And that's it for the news. Electronic Arts announces agreement to be acquired by PIF, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners for $55 billion. PIF is the Saudi's public investment fund. It's the same fund that has brought you like their fake golf league, and the same fund that they use, I believe, to probably to buy SNK and invest in Nintendo and pay the WWE to put on big shows over there. And some of that money, I think, is going to like Dave Chappelle to go over there. You know, free speech warriors. Gonna get over there and exercise their rights to free speech over there, right? It's gonna, yeah, cool stuff. Meanwhile, like the other, you know, like, so the PIF is one part of this. Silver Lake is an investment firm. You know, they've invested in a wide variety of stuff. I think Silver Lake controls part of Endeavor, which owns TKO, which is the company that runs UFC and WWE. Affinity Partners is despite also being invested in by the PIF directly, Affinity Partners is apparently also funded by Saudi money and run by a guy named Jared Kushner, who is the president's son-in-law. And so they are looking to buy Electronic Arts. Now, this is a leveraged buyout, meaning they're taking out a loan of about $20 billion to pay for this, and then that debt is going to be serviced by EA. So they're borrowing money to buy a company and then throwing the money on top of the company and saying like, hey, let's make it real easy for you to dig your way out of this one. You know, the way these buyouts go with all these other great companies, Toys R Us and whatever else, you know, that are still around today, right? Yeah. They made it.
Looking trim, honey.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
The deal is expected to close in about a year. They're expecting it to close sometime next summer. And Andrew Wilson, the current CEO of Electronic Arts, sent this out to employees, and then they posted it publicly as well. Team. Moments ago, we announced that the board approved an agreement for EA to be acquired by PIF, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners. You can read the press release here. And he goes on to, like, talk about money a little bit. It's valuing EA at $55 billion. The board concluded that this transaction is in the best interest of our company and our stockholders. Maybe should have reversed that in order of importance, because I don't know that this is in the best. Well, is it in the best interest of the company? Like, who could say? This moment is a recognition of your creativity, your innovation, and your passion. You've built some of the world's most iconic IP, created stories that have inspired global communities, and helped shape culture through interactive experiences. Everything we have achieved, everything that lies ahead is because of you. And so on. It says our values and our commitment to players and fans around the world remain unchanged. With continued vigor and operational excellence, we can amplify the creativity of our teams, accelerate innovation, and pursue transformative opportunities that position EA to lead the future of entertainment. Together, we'll create experiences that are bold, expressive, and deeply connected to inspire generations of players around the world. I'm excited to continue as CEO, working alongside our leadership team to advance our strategy. United by our vision, we will deliver experiences that transcend platforms and empower players everywhere to create worlds, characters, and stories that are bold, interactive, and deeply connected, and blah, 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 blah. So I think the things to latch onto there is that, which no one could possibly know this at this point. Like, the deal is just, that has just been approved, and it isn't expected to close for a good chunk of time. But I think to say our values and our commitment to players and fans around the world remain unchanged. I find that that's a very that's not something you can safely assert. I don't think that that's something. And hey, that's true right now. I'm sure everyone's like, "Oh, nothing's gonna change, man." Yeah,
It's the best
but no, that's just what they say to each other as they work their way through these deals. I think it's very hard to say what will happen on the other end of this, right? And I think you have a lot of people rushing to say, oh, this means this, this means this, this means this, and trying to sound like the smart person who's got it all figured out. But I think the thing I would say is that very few of the people involved in this transaction, probably, none of them know exactly how this is going to go. They've got ideas. And, a lot of that probably starts with okay, we've got $20 billion in debt to deal with. So, I have to imagine that anything the company views as less than the biggest big play they could be playing is going to be completely done. I told my wife yesterday, I said, hey, I don't think they're going to make another Dragon Age game ever again. And maybe that was already true, but now extra not. I think the idea that we'll get another Mass Effect seems like, I don't know, man. I would assume that they will, and this is a company that is already focused in this direction, right? But I would assume that it means that we are going to see an increasing focus on sports.
Asshole, my shit.
Particularly football, both footballs. And, because Battlefield is right around the corner, that will be a focus for them, for, the foreseeable future, right? They will service that game for years to come and whatever else. But the idea of oh, hey, we're going to publish the next 3 Hazelight games. I don't know that is something that would happen. You could see, yes, The Sims is something that has the potential to be incredibly large, and so I could see them really trying to focus on The Sims, and trying to finally make that, kind of bring that back the way that it probably needs to be brought back. That would be a sensible move on their part. But if you're out there going man, they're one of these days they're going to make a new SSX, no, come on. A, already that was not going to happen. B, no. This to me just looks like something where they will. And it's funny because there are things about not being a public company that take some of the pressure off in some situations, right? Where you're okay, now we don't have to work on a quarterly basis. We don't care about our quarterly numbers. We don't have to have something ship here just to make the quarter or make our fiscal year, make this, make that. We're a private company. We don't have to care about that. We can do what's right for the products and what's right for the long-term business, right? Those are the benefits of not being a public company. Is it lets you kind of step out of that growth at all costs kind of thing. However, now you've stepped into a kind of leveraged buyout situation where now you've got a ton of debt and loans to service. And so you've stepped into actually probably a worse version of this than we've got to have a quarterly business. We can only think 90 days at a time. We can, now you're now you're under the gun on loan payments and all of this other stuff, right? And if you aren't making those numbers, then suddenly it's a fire sale and you're shutting down, you're slashing costs. I would assume that they slash costs as this deal is closing, like probably not until then, but I have to imagine, like I would not be shocked. Like you look at stuff and you go like, oh wow, Star Wars: The Old Republic is still running, huh? That's weird. Like I would not be shocked to see them just go like, all right, we're cutting loose of this stuff. We're laying off everyone that has BioWare on their card. They're done. We're shutting this entire studio down. Like Motive and some of this other stuff that are off making things that don't tie into what they view as the kind of massive profit centers of the company. That's probably not aligned with this company's future. And in a situation where they need to kind of make their balance sheet look a little better out of the gate, I would not be shocked to see a lot of that stuff just vanish. And even with all of that done, even with all of that said and done, they're still going to have to service a whole lot of debt. I'm not a super numbers focused kind of dude, but even I look at this stuff, and as I kind of read some of the reactions from the financial community and people that know games and know the parts of the finance world, you look at it and I think the reaction is just like, this is the end of this company. Like not next year, not 5 years down, you don't know when, but this is eventually this money gets on top of them and that's it. And because it will be incredibly difficult for them to dig themselves out of the hole that is being created here. Now, the other thing to remember is this is a situation where you've got the Saudis with their fund overpaying for something, as they have been willing to do time and time again, right? Because their goals aren't purely financial here. The thing to remember about all of this is that part of their goal is to seem like the cool guy. Hey, we're cool. We're just doing business like everybody else. Those people that died, we didn't kill nobody. Hey, the WWE is here. We're having a great time. Those women look very warm. And so a big part of it is them trying to whitewash their reputation around the world. And so that is why they go and they start their own golf league, and they try to, that is why they do a comedy festival, right? They're trying to be like, we're a cultural, we're a part of the world of culture, and all this stuff is happening here. This is great. Come out here and see the same comedians you see in America and all these other places. They're here too. We're having a great time over here. We're all just wonderful. Everything here is wonderful. The WWE stuff is funny because they've been doing these shows over there for years, and there is always a part of the show where they show a package about how great Saudi Arabia is. And there's we've been over here all week, and look at this building. It's so big and cool, and the fans love it, and here's a bunch of cheering children. Yay! It is incredibly... it is, it's a propaganda piece, right? And it's a propaganda piece that they are trying to export to the rest of the world and say look at this, it's fine over here. We're all cool. We like the same stuff you do. Steve Austin, look at this guy. He's crashing an ATV. Fuck yeah. That is a part of this, right? And so, if EA doesn't, this is a way for them to worm their way into football, into the NFL, through their involvement in Madden and all of that. And so how do you, what do you, how do you get deeper and deeper into these sorts of things? And it is also a way for them to, look, they have made a lot of money on oil. And while I think right now, if you're looking at America and looking at the direction we're heading in and some of the kind of backwards shit that's happening around these parts, sometimes it doesn't feel like this is the case, but like, you know, like clean energy and just like different types of energy, like a more assorted range of sources of energy. You know, that's something that exists now. Or we're not going to be like not using oil in, you know, in a year's time or whatever. But, you know, we talk about peak oil consumption and whatever else. Like that money's only going to last so long. So diversify. So part of it is, you know, like there's the kind of social ramifications and them trying to kind of, you know, get their reputation to be cleaner than it has been. And then there's also this idea of just like, hey, we have been sitting on oil money for a long time and we need to start spending it because this oil money might not last forever. So let's, while this money is good money, while our credit is still good in all these parts of the world, let's invest in a bunch of shit. And they've identified games and esports for some fucking insane reason as a thing that they want to have a greater involvement in. Esports, like they, you know, they are now part owners of Evo. I think is that what the sale of Evo happened, and now they are a major investor in that. But like, you know, we saw like Saudi involvement in Virtua Fighter esports and all this other stuff. You're just like, what the fuck is happening here? And that's what's happening here, right? Is they've seen this as an investment strategy, both from a business standpoint and from a cultural one. And there's no sign of any of that slowing down. And so the EA thing, you know, is kind of the boldest and biggest expression of that. And I think that you've seen people try to like tie all these pieces together, and you know, I think anything's possible. But I would be wary. You know, there are people who are immediately like, well, because they're also invested through this into WWE and they do a lot of business with WWE, that means EA is going to get the WWE license from 2K and they're going to start making wrestling. Like, if you're EA, I think the last thing you want to do right now is start a new studio and try to build a wrestling game, especially when you look at EA's history in the wrestling game business. I don't think that that's something that they want to chase. It is probably cheaper and better business to let that game sit with 2K than it would be to start all over again. Unless you're desperate to kind of get all of these interests under one roof, which they don't, the Saudis don't own WWE directly, you know, through investments in Endeavor and whatever else. Like, yes, there is something there, but it doesn't like. It doesn't always behoove, like, this isn't always about, like, that style of consolidation, right? One thing I've seen that I actually, you know, just because, you know, where there's corruption in one way, there's maybe corruption in another. These guys like to hang out. These corruption dudes like to chill. I did, my one of my first thoughts was like, oh, they're going to have the FIFA name on the box of that soccer game within 2 years. Because I don't know, like, nothing happened to FIFA, right? FIFA talked a big game about when on this split up. They're like, well, the biggest game in the world is going to have FIFA on the box, and that's we're gonna go do this. And the closest thing that happened with FIFA is that they started using Konami's eFootball game as their esports game. But that doesn't mean that the game became FIFA eFootball or whatever. It's just that for FIFA's esports stuff, they switched to eFootball. And there was a lot of talk that 2K had picked up the rights to the FIFA name and, oh, they're going to make a soccer game and they're going to get... And again, for the same reason that I think it would be kind of a bad idea for EA to get into the wrestling game business, I don't know that I think it's a great idea for 2K to get into the soccer game business right now. Well, maybe, you know, EAFC has not been killing it. Like, the reviews this year are not super positive, the ones that I have seen. But, like, they did a mobile thing and whatever. My point is, I don't think anyone, like, went in and bought the FIFA license. You know, I don't think anyone stepped in there and said, okay, here's the future of the FIFA license in video games. Like, I don't necessarily think that 2K... I think if 2K had done that, we would have seen some kind of announcement by now. They've there's been enough years between games that you would have at least expected to hear something about it. But who can say? But my impression is that the FIFA license for just like pure video games of a console and PC like nature, meaning not mobile, not other weird kind of one-off stuff, I think that is still, if not available, then I bet it would be something that they could get their hands on relatively near term. But FIFA said they were going to make their own game or whatever. Well, whatever horse shit they said that no one at the time, they're like, okay, well, that's never going to fucking happen. And surprise, surprise, it did not. So I would not be shocked to see, like, just with the money available to them, right? If they really want to invest in making their soccer game undeniable and whatever else, I could see them saying, hey, you know what? We should get back together with FIFA and we should pay them. Like, I'm sure their prices maybe come down because they have not found a lot of other takers in the space. And, and EAFC, well, I don't know how much of that is as a result of the name, right? The name change. I don't know. Like, how many sales do you think were lost because FIFA's not getting on the box? Probably not that many, right? Like, people know what it is. People are generally plugged in enough to know that is still the same game. But you've heard bits and pieces about, like, oh, they're not really happy about the long-term sales performance over the course of an entire year with EAFC. And again, I think the reviews for this year's game have not been mega kind. So yeah, I would not be shocked to see the FIFA name come out of this. Now, ironically, one of the other things that I think will come out of this long term is that you will see an opportunity for all of these dormant IPs that EA is holding on to potentially be revived, just not by EA. I would think that, especially as that debt becomes harder and harder to service over the years, that they will look to sell off and peel off as many different parts of the company as they can. And so they're sitting on a bunch of IP that I don't think any one of those IP is worth zillions of dollars. There's nothing they're sitting on that you go like, oh, that's a gold mine or whatever. But like, I could see a scenario where, either when the company completely out and out fails, or as it is, struggling to kind of meet some of the terms of that loan, if they do find themselves selling off Ultima and Mass Effect and Mirror's Edge. Yes, the PIF brings you the latest Mirror's Edge game. Come on. And a lot of the other stuff that they own. Yes, sure, yes. As Pat says, selling parts of it to other Saudi-owned companies, sure, yeah, maybe, whether it's SNK or some of this other, as they acquire and invest in other studios, yeah, maybe there are smaller investments that they have placed around the video game space where they could go, actually, EA is really going to be focused on this top stuff. But yeah, SNK is going to make the next Burnout, or whatever the fuck, right? Or publish the next Burnout. Maybe something weird like that happens.
Hey, what's the matter?
And that's that. Like I said, they're not looking for this deal to close for about a year, and so a lot can happen between here and there. But that is where they're headed right now. EA was a company that had matured, right? Like, they had mature, successful brands, generally speaking, right? And growth is a really hard thing to do. Like, at some point, like, Madden football has been an institution in video gaming in this country and some others for decades. And awareness is not a problem with John Madden. With John Madden's football, people are aware of it, and they have made the choice whether they want it or not. The number of people that swing in Madden sales every year, you've got the people that just buy it every year because they like football enough to put up with that, and that's their thing, and you have people who don't. The number of actual like swing buyers that like, if Madden's good this year, I might buy it. Like that's not a huge number. And so if you are on the publicly traded stock market where you just have to constantly be growing, at some point Madden is just like stale. It's a stale item on your balance sheet that like brings in a reliable amount of money and keeps you, you know, looking good so you can spend some of that money to place other bets in other parts of your business or whatever. But like, it's not sexy like it should be, Jack. Their soccer game, same deal. You know, that like since Ultimate Team came out and kind of rewrote the script on, you know, how that game monetizes and whatever else, you know, like again, you kind of solidify into this, like, this is how many copies of this game we sell, and we can tell you that within, you know, 100,000 copies one way or the other, depending on, you know, factors of, is the game good, and when do we put it on sale or whatever else, you know, like it's just, it just sort of exists, right? And so that's why college football was such an exciting thing for them when they got back into it, because it was suddenly new money. And now, you know, when they hit year 2 of college football, it was already like, maybe this didn't need to be annual. Oh shit. So EA's been in this, like, you know, like the crosshairs for acquisition for kind of a while now. Because you look at it and go like, okay, well, now all you can really do to force growth is to merge it with something else and lay off a whole bunch of people to get better margins on it, right? Like that's to make these same numbers look better, you spend less money on other shit. And so you tell Joseph Ferris, thank you for your service, and you go find somebody else, you know, like whatever. You tell all these other, you know, games that you publish, like, we're out of this. We're not going to make another one of these. We're going to shut the studio down. We do this, you know, like it just seems like that this has been, you know, this is the like crazy outsized weird version of this, but like I think there's been a lot of people predicting a sale of EA or some kind of acquisition for EA for a long time. There was a while there years ago where people thought Comcast was maybe going to pick it up and that would lead to some kind of new synergies or whatever, but like yeah, I think, you know, like ultimately, like who knows, right? You know, because I think there are so many different factors at play here, and it's hard to know. Like, you know that, like, oh, the Saudis want to be able to increase their, you know, to increase their reputation stat. They want to get +5 rep for, you know, owning football video games. How far are they willing to take that if the company's not profitable, and how much, you know, like how far are they willing to go? Like, what are the different levers, and you know, how much is it focused on, like, hey, how are we gonna make more money on the same 3 games, the same 5 games, whatever else? But I think a lot of people were assuming it would be some other larger entertainment company or something. And yeah. But maybe EA gets carved up in a zillion different directions, and, you know, they're able to just like, oh, we did this leveraged buyout, and whoops, it went bankrupt, and all these properties got sold to us, by us to us for X amount of dollars. You know, who knows? Maybe it's all just some. It is probably all some weird, insane scheme that none of us will see coming until it's too late. And you go like, oh, geez, yeah. Either way, you know, you know, Apex Legends was like the company's last like big kind of breakout new hit, right? And Apex has not been stable in terms of its, you know, like people are not as happy with that game as they were a number of years ago. You know, like Apex feels like it is maybe peaked. And so what do you do next there? And, you know, like how do you... There were some earnings calls where they were like, I think they went in 3 months from like, oh, it would be stupid to make an Apex 2. We've got Apex 1. We'll just update that one to, maybe we'll make an Apex 2. As the kind of the fortunes on that changed. But yeah, if you're sitting around going, oh yeah, when's Titanfall 3 coming out? Like, don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to yourself. Costco. has apparently stopped carrying the Xbox. I was at a Costco recently, and they did not have Xboxes. It's true. That part of it, at least. But it sounds like that retailers, including EB Games Canada, this is according to thegamer.com, who's kind of collating information from a couple of different places here. But the quote coming out of Costco is, "We don't have any plans going forward to carry an Xbox console," and that the retailer noted it was a business decision. And that, yes, that EB in Canada is apparently, you know, the word after that is that the EB Games Canada, and this is, again, this kind of gets into dicier kind of rumor-like territory, but it is from an EB Games Canada employee said that the retailer is looking to sell whatever it has left, and they have no plans to restock. And that they, you know, if you go look at the EB Games Canada website for what they have in stock and don't, it does look like that some of that stuff is maybe running out of stock. I was on a call with some friends who work in video games, and they had not heard that information, and I mentioned it to them. None of them work at Xbox, and I said, "Oh, by the way, yeah, did you hear about this?" And they were like, everyone was like, "What the fuck?" Like, it was just like, and it suddenly turned into like, "Oh, well, this happened and this happened," you know, like a lot of like, "Oh man, like the Xbox division as a whole, what the fuck's going on over there?" So basically, this doesn't seem good, but also it's hard to know where this came from. Is this Costco saying, "Hey, you guys are going to raise prices again? We're already not selling these fucking things. Like, we're just done, dude." Or is it Microsoft saying, "Hey, we're going to start, you know, as we're raising these prices and you know, because of the tariffs and whatever else, like, we're going to sort of start to pull back here because we've got new hardware on the way," or whatever, right? Like, there was a time when the original Xbox, and the first Xbox, when they were cutting off that system's water, if you will, when they were rushing to the 360, there was a time when suddenly the original Xbox was difficult to come by, or it was becoming more difficult to come by. You would find it out of stock. You would find it, you know, that just, you know, the shelf space devoted to the original Xbox was going down. Games weren't being stocked on day one. Like, there was a weird, there was just weird stuff. And Microsoft hadn't announced anything about, like, what's up with the Xbox, but you could tell that, like, okay, there's like some alarm bells ringing around here because retailers are like clearly punching out of this, you know, in a very strange and sudden way. And this reminds me a little bit of that, where you've got some retailers that are just kind of getting out of stock and getting out of the Xbox Series business completely. It would make sense if Microsoft was getting ready to ramp up for new hardware, but that still feels like something that's years off. And so I wonder if we're going to enter this very strange trench here where Xbox hardware becomes a little bit harder to come by, as this, you know, their SKUs will kind of fluctuate or whatever, because, you know, they just raised prices on everything, and then that 2 terabyte Series S is like an insane amount of money. Like, it's just ridiculous expense for a fucking Xbox. And so, like, the deal on buying an Xbox already felt kind of bad. Like, I feel like the only way you could thread the needle on making buying an Xbox make sense right now is specifically Game Pass. And go like, well, if you
I like to share too. Thank you.
are a Game Pass subscriber, you know, there's a lot of games that will be coming your way, and the quality on those games is varied, but you'll get the first party stuff, you'll get this, you'll get that. Like, you know, like if that is something that matters to you, then I could see, okay, let's get an Xbox. You could also say, hey, maybe you should instead get a medium, a mid-tier PC, because the raised prices of these consoles is starting to brush up against the, you know, kind of low to mid-tier PC pricing at this point. That, like, you know, you could get Game Pass on a PC and still have access to a lot more stuff. Of course, some players are never going to be willing to entertain the idea of a PC because they think it is too scary and too much work for them, and they don't understand how Windows work, whatever. That's always going to be a factor here, right? That works in the Xbox hardware is fatal. So there's like a few kind of Xbox things happening all at once here that I don't think are great news for that brand kind of overall. This to me is a wait and see sort of thing. This is like, okay, are other retailers going to follow suit here? Is there something happening behind the scenes that we're just not aware of with regards to Xbox hardware, where they're going to make some adjustments about their offering there? I mean, they just raised prices, so that'd be weird for them to be like, have a different weird update waiting in the wings or something. Like, I don't mean like more powerful hardware. I mean like cheaper hardware. I mean like, oh God, we've got to counteract the effects of these tariffs. We've got to figure out what we're going to do here. Another thing that cropped up again that I feel like, you know, there's a lot of people that love to talk off the record about how much they don't like making Xbox games. And I found myself hearing that old saw yet again last week, where that there, you know, the talk was, hey, there are some third parties that when they look at how much they sell on Xbox, and then they also look at how much they have to spend and how much time and money they have to spend in order to pass cert, be certified on the Xbox Series S. Yes, the Series S. The work to support the lower powered Xbox console and the low number of copies they're selling, they're starting to look at that and go, this actually isn't worth it. We should just skip Xbox completely. That's been something that I think has come up in different ways, time and time again, and it's been increasing, and I heard it all over again from someone last week. But they're like, oh yeah, I don't think this is, you know, and so it's kind of the downside. We were talking about Madden, and I was talking about that Madden documentary last week, and how one of the, like, when Visual Concepts, when that ESPN football game came out, the last years of 2K football, and it was $20. And everyone likes to herald that as like an amazing move, and oh my God, they really took it to them, and they had a superior product at a lower price, and then it turns out like, oh, the NFL did not like having their premium brand being sold for $20, and so that kind of drove them into the arms of EA to sign that exclusivity agreement specifically to protect all that pricing and be viewed as a premium thing all over again. That you also kind of, you know, like the Series S. Early in the generation, the Series S seemed like an incredibly smart move. It was a cost-effective device for people who did not necessarily want to splash out and spend $500 on a new console. You had like a more budget-minded item that was less powerful, but it still got most of the way there, and you know, hey, here's a better machine than what you've been using, but it's not the best, and it'll still play all this Game Pass stuff, and it'll still play this, it'll still play that, and it seemed like a very smart move, especially at a time when the PlayStation 5 was out of stock everywhere. They're like, oh, well, the Series S is out there and it's moving units, and it's yeah, this is interesting. And now here we are kind of on the other side of that, especially as, you know, other machines, the PC and whatever else, have become more powerful, and some things have become more taxing, just from a development end. Now suddenly that Series S is starting to look a little bit more like a noose around their neck at Xbox. When it comes to third parties wanting to go through the hassle of supporting it, which is weird because you wouldn't think it would be that big of a deal, because a lot of these games come out on PC and they're going to have wide ranges of targets, or some of these games are going to come out on Switch too, and so there's versions of these games that need to be made for less powerful hardware. But when they specifically look at the work it takes to get the Series S version of the game running the way it needs to run in order to be sold, they look at the costs associated with that, and they look at the money that the Xbox version brings in.
Can we go
They're
get
starting to
eat?
bristle.
Right,
You have some third parties, not all of them. It's a wide, it's a big industry, right? But you're starting to see some more of these third-party publishers bristling at that idea of having to do that. So that's not good. The ROG Xbox Ally and Xbox Ally X
This is so interesting.
have gotten a release date and a price. These got announced at the same time, like basically an hour before pre-orders opened. Seemingly, they said, "Hey, by the way, the high-end model, the Xbox ROG Ally X, is going to cost $1,000. The ROG Xbox Ally, which is a lower-tiered device, will cost $600 US.
Sure, Denise, we can hit shit.
Pre-orders for this opened last week. As far as I can tell, the only real retailer that is going to sell these things is Best Buy. If you want one otherwise, you need to go to Microsoft or Asus directly and buy one from them. Best Buy is the only other U.S. retailer listed on Microsoft's site for this thing. At least in the U.S. I don't know where you live, man, but
What a great meal, Romeo.
the differences there is that the processor in the $1,000 model is a Z2 Extreme over a Z2A.
I want to open a
It also has
shop
1
one day.
terabyte of storage and a larger battery, whereas the ROG Xbox Ally, which is the base model, has 512 gigs of storage and 16 gigs of RAM as opposed to 24. Both of them have 1080p screens with 120 hertz refresh rates. Both of them are extremely more expensive than a Steam Deck. There's a variety of factors that go into that, but some of them, I believe, tariff related, but suffice it to say, you can still go pre-order one of these. They didn't sell out. The Microsoft allotment, however many they were taking pre-orders for on the Microsoft site, I believe those sold out. But you can still, when I checked last night, you could still go to Best Buy and pre-order one of these things if you want one. It'll be out October 16th, so real soon now. That's 2 weeks. 2 weeks, she said. I saw something that maybe we should have all seen. If we were smarter, if we were better armchair analysts, we would have seen this coming from a mile away. One of the things they're running into, one of the comparisons, one of the unfavorable comparisons that they're running into here, is that people are looking at this and going, oh, it's an Xbox. Why would I pay that much money for an Xbox? Because Microsoft has spent a bunch of time saying, this is an Xbox. This is an Xbox. This is also an Xbox. Here's an Xbox. This is a personal computer. This is not Xbox hardware. This will not play your Xbox games. Some people still think this thing is going to play your Xbox games. It will not play your Xbox games. It does not natively play Xbox games. It is a Windows. It is running Windows 11 Home, not even Pro. For $1,000, I can't even be a professional. And so my feeling on this is that the education and the hands-ons and what is this thing and when is it coming out and all of this sort of stuff, like it is crazy that this thing is coming out in 2 weeks, considering the utter lack of coverage. Like, people got hands-ons with it at like Gamescom, and you had kind of like the traditional kind of tech write-ups and like, this is a thing, and they're showing a version of this, this game mode that they're building into Windows 11. They're showing a version of it, but it's clearly not done. And here's a bunch of, and now it's like, hey, it's coming out. And so you have this situation where it's like, it's the word Xbox is biting them in the ass in a really crazy way. Because the only Xbox games this will be able to play are games that are Xbox Play Anywhere games, meaning if you buy it on Xbox, you can also play them on PC. Those will work, but as we talked about last week, a lot of third parties not interested in giving you a free version of their game. A lot of third parties out there saying like, wait, no, if people want to play it on Xbox and PC, then they should buy it there. Why would we give them this one for free? What? No. What? And so, like, on some level, I wonder if the OS is going to be ready in time for this. They've already said, like, hey, there's going to be this stuff at launch, and then there's stuff that we're working on that is going to be further out. They've already kind of delineated the launch experience of this concept of the handheld Windows 11 stuff. They've already kind of put their foot down and say, here's the launch features and here's what's coming later. But you also have like the masses of people who don't really follow this stuff, as well as anyone who would ever listen to a podcast about it, who think it's an Xbox. And it's not. And also it's incredibly expensive when compared to other handhelds in the space. I don't know, that Lenovo thing was incredibly pricey as well. And so prices in this space have been creeping up in a lot of weird ways too. And so you had a lot of unfavorable comparisons around this device, because you had a lot of people trying to compare it to an Xbox Series X and saying like, oh, it's not as powerful as that, but it's this much more money and it's this and that. It's like, well, it's not even a fucking console. Like, if you like back up a few steps, it doesn't even play those fucking games, dude. Like, it's not, it ain't gonna do that. And it's a weird mess. And then like tack on to like all of that, like, yeah, the Legion Go is like 1350, 14, like some stupid amount. Like, these things are getting pricey across the board. The pricing on this Xbox thing is not entirely unheard of. I think people were thinking like it would be like, maybe it's like $900, I don't know, and they were off by $100. And this is not, Xbox's official hardware, and maybe they will have their own official handheld down the line. We heard the story that they had, pushed off work on their own handheld device in favor of promoting this device first and figuring out, their own, their O&O hardware strategy somewhere down the line. And what the fuck is that going to be? Like, with the way that they're just kind of like selling everything up the river a little bit, I think it all points to like, it would make sense if the next Xbox was kind of a more open PC kind of thing, but like that sacrifices so many different cost center, like revenue sources for them. That seems weird too. I don't really know what is going on over there anymore. It just feels really, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like a clear strategy. The everything's an Xbox thing was cute, but like looking back on it now, I see why. Yeah, it's kind of confusing. Like, it's a little, if you're not following this stuff super closely, trying to tell people that their television is an Xbox and that their phone is an Xbox and all of this stuff leads to this moment where people now see this and go, oh, It's an Xbox. So it'll play my Xbox games. And their answer is like, yes, it will. Via Xbox Cloud streaming, which is not a solution. Stop pretending it's a valid solution. It's not a valid solution. It's a mess. Here's one more thing that I look at. If you want to try to build a narrative here, that's not necessarily what I'm trying to do with all of these Xbox stories one after another. But here's a bit of information that I saw over on videogameschronicle.com. It's a website, your home for video game news. And if you need energy drink coverage that emanates from outside the U.S., they're okay at that. Forza Horizon 6 was announced. The game will be set in Japan this time, capitalizing on user demands like 5 years after the fact, like the latest possible, like, okay, fine, that they could have done. They posted about it on Xbox Wire, which is their kind of official news source for Xbox stuff. And at the bottom of the Xbox Wire post about Forza 6, where they are answering people's questions about the game, Video Games Chronicle noticed this. Forza Horizon 6 will launch first on Xbox consoles and PC in 2026. With the excitement for this franchise on other platforms, Playground Games and Turn 10 Studios are also working together to bring Forza Horizon 6 to PlayStation 5 post-launch. So it will not launch day and date on PS5. This to me does not feel necessarily like a policy-based decision. I'm instead left wondering if this is just straight up a resource management issue of like, okay, we just laid off a bunch of people from Turn 10 that maybe could have been working on a PS5 port, or could have been like this other stuff could have been happening and whatever else. But like, this just seems like, okay, we are not necessarily going to, like, they have not ironed things out on a production process standpoint yet. And, you know, like, they've had a lot of games that have staggered release like this, but it's been more like, it feels like that they'll get there eventually. And you've had some games, you know, like the stuff that emanates from outside the traditional kind of Xbox studio leadership. You know, Call of Duty has been a multi-platform franchise for years, so of course it launched day and date across the board, like, naturally, right? That makes sense that they would keep doing that, but like the production process is probably not in place to simultaneously ship all of these versions of Forza 6 across all of these platforms just yet. I would assume that they would get there because I think that that's where they probably benefit the most, unless they're counting on people buying it twice, but that seems like insanity to me. But I do think that they probably would want to have all of the versions of the game benefit from the same marketing push, and get all that marketing spend to apply to as many different versions of the game as possible.
I need your car, homie.
So I have to assume, maybe wrong, but I have to assume that the end goal is to simultaneously ship these games in all of these places. But that's easier said than done. Even though they did the work of getting the previous Forza Horizon onto PS5, like, I'm sure that got them a lot of the way there, but they're probably just not confident in that process enough to finish the job or to commit to it. And so we'll see how that ends up working out. But yeah, you know, like, you know, and VGC notes it as well. Like, stuff like Doom simultaneously shipped across multiple platforms. The Outer Worlds 2 will also end up on Xbox and PlayStation. So clearly there's no policy thing in place to where these Xbox-owned studios shipping single-player games, even in the case of like Outer Worlds 2, you know, it doesn't seem like there's a policy problem here where they're like, oh, we're going to wait 6 months or however long to put Forza out on PlayStation. My guess is that this is just that they don't have their act together yet to do that. They're just not built to do it yet, and they probably need to be.
Have you tried the latest IV drip?
Yes, quite.
And so all of this stuff ends up, I think when we look at, whether it's the reaction to the ROG Ally, and I think the pricing makes sense when you compare it to other similar devices, insofar as I think they're all fucking super expensive. But such is our unprecedented times meter. The unprecedented times meter is like spinning over and over again. And so here we are. But the cost of writing the word Xbox on that box, I think, is real. I think there's a real cost there. I think that's something that they will get over. It's all part of a long re-education process. Like, you've got to re-educate the masses about what an Xbox is. If you're truly going to commit to this as a strategy, there's a lot more you need to do than just a cutesy ad campaign and hey, we're selling stickers in the store that say this is an Xbox that you can put on your fridge or whatever. I meant to buy some of those so I could put them on my fridge. Oh well. In other news, Doug Bowser, the president of Nintendo of America, will be stepping down from his position at the end of the year. In a press release titled, "Doug Bowser bids farewell to the Mushroom Kingdom," Nintendo has announced its succession plans for the U.S. The U.S. branch of the company. And they're making some interesting moves here. Like, if the one-to-one swap is that Doug Bowser is leaving the company and being promoted into his role of president is Devin Pritchard. And Devin has been with the company for 19 years, most recently serving as the executive vice president of revenue, marketing, and consumer experience. I think she's been there a lot longer than Doug Bowser has. So she's been kind of being promoted from within for some time now into her current role, and she's going to be taking on the spot of president. On top of that, Satoru Shibata, who has had a lot of roles at the company over the years. He was in some fun videos coming out of Nintendo of Europe during his time there. But currently, he is working out of Japan. Let's see, what's his full title here, according to this, is Executive General Manager of the Marketing Division, Senior General Manager of Publisher and Developer Relations Division, Senior General Manager for the Asia and Oceania Business Division. He will retain those roles, I believe. Or, well, okay. His new roles will be Executive General Manager of Marketing, Senior General Manager of Publisher and Development Relations, and CEO of Nintendo of America. This was Iwata's position. Iwata held the position of CEO of NOA. And they had not filled the role. Shibata is going to be stepping into that spot. I will say that from the folks that I have talked to, no one has had an unkind thing at all to say about either Devin Pritchard or Shibata. And so, there seems to be, it seems like that they're going to be in a good place. People certainly liked Doug Bowser as well. And I think it's also important to remember when we think about these roles and you think about Nintendo of America, NOA is largely a division that just markets and sells Nintendo's products in the US. They handle the localization. Like, there's certainly work that they do on games that emanates from NOA. But ultimately, a lot of the decisions are being made elsewhere. A lot of this stuff is, stuff that's kind of coming out of Kyoto and being kind of handed down. Here you go. Here are the games we're making. Here's the stuff we're selling. It's not to say that they don't look for feedback and input from within. And, I don't feel like the impression I get is that the people at NOA are not just like paper pushing number, you know, it's not purely just marketing and whatever, but it's kind of like the main focus of NOA. And so people, you know, you've had some people try to look at this and try to predict like, oh, Nintendo's going to do this and this and this is going to change it. Like, no, it's NOA, man. Like this, they come up with ad campaigns. Like they come up with, you know, like it's they manage developer relations for this region and all of that stuff. Like that's and so Shibata, being someone who is kind of a head of publisher and developer relations, meaning third parties, I do wonder him stepping into a CEO role in NOA. Like, will this finally put a stop to the whole, like, hey, we can't get dev kits. Hey, why don't we have a dev kit? How come this publisher, how come this developer, how come they don't have dev kits? Why aren't dev kits going out? Like, I wonder if you know, having the head of the division being someone who is a developer relations person will be like okay, solve this. Like, why is this a problem? What are we dealing with? What's the actual issue here? Why don't these people have dev kit? You know, like, I wonder if that will be handled. These changes take effect on January 1st. Well, okay, so actually that's not entirely true. Shibata's move takes effect November 16th of this year, but Doug Bowser will be with the company through the end of the year, and Devin Pritchard will be stepping into the role on Jan 1.
What's up, man? Hello.
Jiro Takeuchi will also be moving into a new role. So Takeuchi will be taking over Shibata's. Will be stepping into a senior general manager marketing role worldwide, and will be the GM of Asia and Oceania business divisions. So that stuff is coming off of Satoru Shibata's plate, and he is coming into the U.S. This is all a lot of executive mucky muck, and I don't expect I don't expect this to result in any kind of meaningful differences in Nintendo's business. But for what it's worth, you know, those people seem like they are well liked from the little I dug into it. What's Doug Bowser gonna go do? Doug, you know, with a name like Bowser, he was so well suited for the role. And I never met Doug Bowser. You know, it's just he came into the position at a time when my role was changing in a lot of different ways, and so yeah, I just never crossed paths. But always heard he was a good guy. Video Games Chronicle is reporting via a Polish site called PPE that there is a revision coming to the DualSense controller. Specifically, that they are looking to revise the DualSense controller in order to include a removable battery. This doesn't mean like put your own AA batteries into it. It more means like a battery pack that you would be able to remove and replace, which when you consider going all the way back to the DualShock 3, you know, encountering these controllers that can't hold a fucking charge anymore because the batteries are ancient, this seems like a good idea. Ideally, it's got a lot of battery power in it, because I know people are not thrilled about the battery life of the DualSense controller. I wonder if they will also revise the DualSense Edge or not, but we'll see. This is also supposedly coming alongside a revised version of the PlayStation 5 Pro, but the difference here seems really minimal. It's, according to this report, it will use 3% less power than the current model, which sounds like a basic optimization of manufacturing and whatever else. So that doesn't sound like a dramatic shift. Removable batteries are nice for a couple of reasons. One, it means you can replace them when the batteries don't hold a charge anymore. And two, it means if you like to run a controller wired, you can remove some of the weight out of it by just not putting a fucking battery on it. Depending on how they do it, maybe the USB port will be on the battery. Who can say? But well, that was a nice thing to be able to do with some other controllers over the years that had removable batteries, is to just lighten them up a little bit. couple of other kind of corporate moves here. Splash Damage has gotten away from Tencent, according to GamesIndustry.biz. Now this came through a bunch of weird acquisitions in 2016.
Nothing is up, Carl.
According to
Apart from my
GamesIndustry.biz,
and
Splash
the
Damage
imminent
was
collapse
purchased
of
by
my
a
hopes
Chinese
and
poultry
dreams.
firm
Why?
called Leiyu,
As
who
usual,
previously had
the forces
purchased a
of
majority
darkness
stake
have
in Digital
triumphed over
Extremes,
good.
which was the
Life is
you know,
nothing
just
but
the makers
misery,
of
briefly
Warframe.
interspersed with agony.
Homie, what you own? Whatever it is, you need to reduce the dosage.
So you're owned by a chicken company.
Excuse me,
but then
but I
Tencent
never
bought
take drugs. We all know
Leiyu's
drugs are for
technology
losers
division
and
in
or sex
2020,
maniacs.
and so Splash
right now,
Damage
sex is
came
the last thing
into
on my mind.
the Tencent
Thank God for that.
portfolio.
Berkeley is back.
Splash Damage had been working on a Transformers game that got
Berkeley,
canceled
yes.
earlier in the year that looked,
Who the
I
fuck
don't know,
is Berkeley?
kind of interesting,
Just
I
a
guess.
man I once
It was
beat
hard
in
to say.
fair competition.
But they
A
canned
man
that
literally
around the beginning of the
obsessed
year.
with revenge.
And
Oh, you putting hands on him?
No, please.
and
I
yeah,
never
I don't know.
initiate violence.
They are Splash
I know.
Damage will
You
keep
knocked
its
this
additional
bitch.
leadership team
No.
and will keep
I
going
won
forward.
the
But they
prize in
are
the science fair.
they have been acquired
First
by
prize,
private
that
equity
is.
investors. But the
And now you
specifics
wanna
of
pop
that
you?
have not been revealed.
No.
And they say gangbangers is petty and small-minded.
This is, you know, there's been talk that maybe Tencent
Hey, what's
would
that
be
bleeping sound?
divesting itself of some
We
of its
shall
game
fight to the
divisions and some of its, especially some of the stuff in
Berkeley's
the West
launched
that
a
maybe
full-scale
Tencent was
attack.
looking to get out. I mean, they had to kind of,
insanity.
I think they had to
All
give up some of their
batteries
seats on the
commence
Epic
fire.
board, even though
He's
they
going
are
for my
investors there
transmitters.
because there was a conflict of interest with
If he
some of
takes
their
them
other
out, I'll never be
investments.
able to launch a counterattack.
No problem, man, but they're
And
only
there's been,
toys.
I feel
They're
like there's been
not
talk swirling
toys.
around about
They're just
Tencent's
smaller.
overall ongoing commitment to
CJ,
some of its
Bogey's at
acquisitions
12
in the
o'clock.
video game space overall. The Games Industry Up has a quote. This quote is from like a recent interview from September. But this is from Yongyi
Great
Zhu,
kid,
who's the
don't
VP and
get
head of
cocky.
business operations,
Marcy Bears
strategy,
at
and
9 o'clock
compliance
on,
at
Carl.
Tencent, and basically says that they have no plans at the moment to pull out. He says, you may see a reduction in investment in certain places, and I think part of that is just the realities of the industry and the dynamics of the industry. So, you know, they're not necessarily trying to signal that they're pulling out, but it does seem like that they have maybe reduced some of their investments and are not looking to, you know, we've seen studios that were Tencent funded that, you know, never even got to announce a game, let alone ship one before they ended up getting their plug pulled. So yeah, I don't know. There's definitely they're definitely reassessing some of their stuff there. Remember that Xbox canceled the game Contraband that Avalanche Studios was working on. At the time, Avalanche didn't say too much about it other than say that they were kind of assessing the situation. Now, according to Eurogamer, they are going to be closing their studio in the UK. They will also restructure studios elsewhere, so there will be an impact to their Swedish studio. And so they shared a statement here, in light of current challenges to our business and the industry, this review has led us to the difficult conclusion that we must make changes to our staffing and location, as we are proposing to close our Liverpool studio and to initiate a collective consultation process as required by UK law. This will impact all Avalanchers in Liverpool. The changes will also impact our other studio locations in Malmo and Stockholm, where we will reduce our workforce and restructure the teams to address our game's needs. Despite these changes, we remain deeply committed to providing amazing games to our passionate player communities. But yeah, not necessarily pinning it all on Contraband, but I have to imagine having that project get canceled, suddenly you are struggling to find money to pay these people. So yeah, that's probably, I don't know how many people they had in Liverpool, but it was probably not a small operation. You know, again, the only reason that those people have not been let go right now today is because the UK has laws around how you shut a thing down and how you lay people off. So this consultation process will run its course, and then presumably that will be that. that's it for the news, man.
We've lost the transfer.
I don't have anything specific to share about, like you always want to look for like, okay, but but what other stuff is going on? There's got to be some good stuff. There's got to be some. I don't know that I have anything specific to share, but I don't know. There's a.
Never have so few.
I would not say
so
that the
many.
mood across
Too
the board
little,
is
three.
purely
No,
doom and gloom.
that's not it.
There
What
is
it?
still this kind of
We will fight
nagging,
him on the beaches.
ongoing
Well,
process of
rooftops.
trying to figure out what to do about stuff like Roblox. And Minecraft is still very substantial. Yeah, I mean, Sony had its, state of play thing. They showed that Wolverine game. Looked fine. Looked neat. Tokyo Game Show kind of came and went. I don't know, man. There, some interesting bits and pieces of information about new games. They kind of showed, they broke down some ideas about the upcoming Virtua Fighter. And some of the changes to blocking and things that they're going to be looking to do that sounded fascinating. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not like a dramatic ton of announcements of brand new products and what have you, but TGS seemed okay. Yeah, Yakuza Kiwami 3 coming and all of that, but I don't know. Things continue to seem like they are in something of a weird place. Even that, I think the EA news, I think when you really look at it, you really think about it from the perspective of like that company and what their prospects were going forward and whatever, and the likelihood of them being acquired. Like that aspect of the stuff is, it's not as surprising that they are being acquired. It is merely just frustrating the way that they are being acquired and all of that. I think there's a dearth of and of course it's this way, right? But like the people near the top of the video games business who care about games and care about actually making great stuff and know games. I mean, forget about care about games and whatever, but like the number of executives, people at high level that really seem to understand video games and what makes them great and the true value of them, just feels like it's never been a smaller, like it just feels like their share of voice in these boardrooms is, like they're not winning these arguments, right? They're not, maybe at Nintendo, right? Nintendo ends up being like, as much as you can kind of latch onto a shiny point and go, yeah. Nintendo, for better or worse, is a company that continues to really focus on that stuff. And it's funny because like their focus on that stuff, the way they focus on games and focusing on just making games and wanting to make great games and all of that, I think sometimes leads to them making some completely questionable decisions in a different way. It's a weird kind of turnaround on some of that stuff, but Nintendo is going to be Nintendo, right? At the end of the day, they're going to do the things they want to do them. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. It's a very strange. It continues to be a very strange business. PlayStation got out there at TGS. I think it was in the keynote. You had Nishino get out there and say that from a financial perspective, the PlayStation 5 is their most successful generation from a pure dollars perspective.
I didn't see nothing.
And there was some number affiliated with that, some number of billions of dollars that they have brought in over the course of the PlayStation 5 generation. And I think it's a really good encapsulated kind of summary of the disconnect that we're seeing right now, right? Of like, yep, it's the most successful console you ever made from a money perspective, but also the console is super expensive, and also you're now running a subscription services business with 3 tiers of service, all of which seem too expensive.
Easy, pal.
And so, it's at odds with this sort of on-the-ground vibe that I think we hear where, I feel like I see the conversation more frequently about, hey, is the PlayStation 5 the worst generation of PlayStations that there's been? And I don't think I necessarily agree with that, but it just seems like that is where the conversation is at. On the ground, in the streets, baby. The smoke on the streets is that the PS5 is washed. Meanwhile, it's their most successful console ever. How do you rectify that? How do you consolidate those viewpoints? How do you make those things make sense?
I like to share too. Thank you.
You don't. Except for the consoles are super expensive, and yeah, okay, they're still selling a bunch of them for now, and whatever else. But I don't know. It is still such a strange. It's still such a strange generation, a strange slate of games. We're going to get to a point here where, GTA 6 is going to ship into an environment where we're starting to hear more and more rumors about the next generation of consoles, right? Hey man, you think the PS5 version of GTA 6 is going to be something? Wait till you see it on PlayStation 6, because they'll sell it all over again eventually. They'll wrap around, right? They'll do their PC version somewhere down the line, and then they'll go, oh, by the way, here's our PS6 version, and whatever the Xbox is, whatever the Xbox is. What the fuck is an Xbox? They spent all this time telling us what an Xbox is, and I'm less certain now more than ever about what an Xbox is, right? So, yeah, and how much is a PlayStation 6 going to cost in an environment where the PS5 Pro is, going up in price, and all these other consoles are going up in price? You're going to go make something that's even more powerful. It's not like the environment is changing in a way that is going to make it more cost effective to make a PS6 than a PS5. So, is that going to be $900? Are we going to be staring down the barrel of $1,000 console? Should I have bought a 3DO when they launched? I mean, I didn't pay anything for this CDI behind me, and it still feels like I got ripped off a little bit. And I love that fucking mess. So yeah, I don't know. It's whatever. Strange times, man. Very strange times. It's still very strange times. And I think that there are still a lot of exciting video games happening. More and more of the excitement seems to be coming from smaller games, and I think that's fine. I like it when the big games are big and bold and crazy, and it just feels like that's the thing that we're just kind of done with, Wolverine looks really good. Someone in chat was saying it, but it scrolled away. Otherwise, I'd acknowledge you more directly. But you know what that game is. At this stage in your life, you've played enough video games to where you probably have a good handle on what the overall structure and vibe of and that's not to say it's going to be bad or anything. It's probably going to be pretty fucking cool for what it is. It looks really neat.
Man, it's Jethro, dude.
Oh,
Hey, Jethro, what up?
Well, I was talking to Caesar, and don't get me wrong, dude.
it's a very
you are one
it's
out
a very
there,
weird
dude, when it comes to driving,
it's
man.
a very
but
weird
Caesar,
thing,
he
man.
told us how many cars
Video
you
games.
get through, dude. And me and Dwayne
Just go grab a copy of Unfair Flips and keep flipping that coin.
No point.
That's
man,
video
no
games,
point.
motherfucker.
Just out there
That's
in
video
advanced
games.
Driving school,
Let's take some emails.
just up the road from the garage, man.
Podcast
Like
at guard.bike
Man,
is the
exactly
email
what
address.
you trying to say, man?
Nothing, man, nothing. It was Dwayne's idea.
Send me an email.
I think you're, cool.
Right
and shit.
now.
I
Not right
better
now.
go.
I mean, you
Jay.
can right now, but
See
I'm
you later.
probably not going to see it until next week. Steven from Vancouver writes in and says, where do you draw the line between AA and indie games? There are games coming out that call themselves indie, but I would consider AA. I mean, teams of 30 plus people and publishing deals with major studios. Katamari Damacy was made by a team of 25 people. Would we be calling it indie if it came out today? Thanks. Okay, so your question is, what's the difference between double A and indie? And the difference is none of those terms mean anything real. None of them. Triple A, quad A, 5, like all of that stuff is all just kind of fake vibes-based stuff. The way it is used in video games. Now, if you want to, originally it was the idea of like, we're comparing it to credit ratings and a AAA credit rating and a AA credit rating. And, like it was always meant to differentiate internally. It was never really meant to be a forward-facing term, but it was something where it was like, okay, well, our biggest games are AAA games, and then kind of our genre staples or whatever, these are kind of more AA or whatever, but like AA was never even a real thing. And so at the end of the day, like all of this shit is fake, and none of it matters.
I was talking to you, asshole.
So, especially the way it's used in video games and the way that different companies use it, the same way that like the job title producer at EA tends to mean a very different thing than what a producer at Ubisoft might do. The AA, AAA thing is it's vibes based. It's horseshit. It's more and more ridiculous as time goes on, especially when you see it being used in a forward-facing capacity. Like when you see it being used publicly, it's kind of like they are trying to convince you that their game is good and big. It's our AAA game. This is going to be a big deal. You're going to need to check it out. It's a big deal. Like it's no one uses the term AA to talk about their game internally, or externally rather. Internally, like whatever. But like when Ubisoft called Skull and Bones a quad A game, that was them trying to talk about like the amount of money they spent making it and how they think it's going to be a bigger, they used that publicly very directly to try to illustrate that it was going to be this massive success, this huge game, and it's going to be a big old deal and all that, like that was never real. But, different people use it different ways. I was talking to someone who was using the term quad A to refer to games that had these like insane, like GTA as a game that has a budget of who knows how many, is it $500 million? Like, as these game budgets get bigger and bigger, we're talking about games that are reaching that $500 million range. Is that where you start calling those games quad A games or something? Like, sure, maybe. It's up for debate, and also it doesn't matter. It's something that you're only using when you're having casual conversations with someone about your studio, and you're talking to someone else at an investment firm or their studio or whatever, and you're just trying to convey to them, in a general sense, the scope of your project. Like, oh yeah, we got this big old thing, you're basically saying like, it's a big old fucking game, man. It's not a real thing. Bariki1 asks, didn't it also derive from movies like B movies? No, it did not. In fact, I would argue that the games that people talk about as AA games are the games that if you wanted to make the movie comparison, those are things you would refer to as B games. And so they're very different. They're very, very different. Uses of similar dumb terminology. But the reality of it is that none of it means anything. Indie, you talk about the difference between AA and indie and all that other stuff. The indie stuff is super frustrating in the same way that it was frustrating in music, in the same way that independent film has been very frustrating at times because there's no hard and fast line about what is independent. And I think the situation at the awards where Dave the Diver was getting, nominated for indie awards despite being funded by Tencent or, Nexon, whoever the fuck was behind that, is, a good dumb indicator that like someone was it Nexon? It was Nexon. That people need to be smarter about that stuff because what does independent mean? When EA becomes a private company that is not traded on the public stock market, are they an independent company at that point? Kind of. Right? But Madden is not a game you would have referred to as an indie game. And so the whole term is just kind of poisoned. It's something that meant something a little more meaningful probably 20 years ago when indie gaming was first getting started, when the idea of a downloadable video game was ridiculous, or for shareware, it was just like, oh, what's a downloadable video game? You mean like Wolfenstein? What the fuck are we, what, a Halloween Harry? What are we talking about here? Like that, like you could draw a line somewhere and say like, oh, a lot of these Xbox Live Arcade games came from independently owned publishers, but a lot of them didn't, but were still made by independent studios. And what's the difference? Who cares? So yeah, ultimately none of it matters. The term AA is fake. The term indie is increasingly fake as time goes on. And we can sit down and we can try to, put our feet down and say, no, indie means this. But like at some point, it's not a term that makes a difference. Like the technical, if you're technically correct about independent publisher and this and that, like it's not a meaningful distinction anymore, because you are saying like, oh, well, are we saying a company that has zero investors? Are we saying a company that is not publicly traded? Like, what is the delineator here for true independence? It doesn't matter. That's not a line we need to draw when we talk about video games. It's not something where it's like, oh, well, this game is better than this one because it's truly indie. Like, all right, whatever, man. And the AA, AAA thing, again, is something that, the way it is actually used is something that is meant for behind-the-scenes discussion of budget sizes or a studio's belief in the overall scope and size and budget of a project, or somewhere in between those two things, right? It's not something that we're meant to know or care about. And so when people talk about it publicly at this point, it's a pointless conversation. It's become totally meaningless, So I wouldn't get too worried about it. I would not get too hung up on what's a AAA game and what isn't, because the old delineators between AAA publishers and, everything else is extremely broken, because when we think about the old guard of video game publishing and how few of those companies are left, the number of studios that would have been like, oh, well, they publish AAA games. Like, there's very few of them left. And, at this point, a full half of them are first party.
Welcome to the advanced driving school. To pass, you must score bronze or higher in all 12 tests.
It's all dumb.
To view a demonstration of each test, please use
the rules
TV
were all made up,
there.
and none of it actually matters. So I would just kind of
training program. You can
keep that in mind, that if you're having a conversation with someone who very seriously wants to define those terms and wants to stick to them and wants to engage with you about the meanings of those terms, just walk away. It's not worth it. You don't need it, man. You don't need this shit in your life. Move on from it. Because it was always just meant to convey some kind of nebulous concept to begin with, when it was used in video games. So, Big Steve, a different Steve from before, says, last episode you spoke about Kojima Productions celebrating 10 years. Now Konami hasn't really moved the Metal Gear franchise forward at all in all that time. I'm curious, do you think Kojima was stifled at Konami, kind of forced to focus mainly on Metal Gear, and sort of like how Masahiro Sakurai mainly works on Smash Brothers? I know he's done Kirby and other projects too, and Kojima was reportedly working on a Silent Hill game towards the end of his Konami tenure. Now that we've seen Death Stranding 1 and 2, plus new projects like Physiant and OD, do you see him as feeling liberated with his own studio, giving him a fresh lease on life to explore multiple directions creatively?
Buying a car in Carvana was so easy.
Yeah, so, yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess. I don't know that I would say that he's, he still has to pitch these games to publishers. Like, publishers still have to want to make these games. And, Death Stranding, I think has given him new legs for walking, new walking legs, because he proved that he could make a game that people wanted after Metal Gear, after Konami, right? And so as part of his process of selling that game to Sony and selling the vision of it to 505, you know, like all of that work to get Death Stranding out the door, and then to have it be reasonably successful, more successful, I think, than some people at Sony thought that game was going to be, I'll say. It gave him the leeway to, you know, do a lot more. And I think that probably gave people fresh interest in working with him in terms of like publishing his games. Because that's a big if, right? Like him coming out of Konami, coming out of Metal Gear. What's he going to do next? Is he just going to make another, like, is he going to make a clone of Metal Gear? I mean, you know, and Physint is, you know, seems like it's something that is going to be maybe the closest thing to Metal Gear that he will have made, but that game is years off, so who the hell knows? I would imagine that he feels pretty damn good about it. I don't know. If I were him, I would probably be full of self-loathing and like fucking got to keep doing the work, you know, whatever it is, right? But I won't pretend to know what his mindset is. But I will say that like he has, again, with the success of Death Stranding, he's proven that he can work with other people's engines, you know, like pulling in the guerrilla stuff, and you know, like he's proven that he can, you know, that he was able to kind of land on his feet, build a new studio, and keep moving forward in ways that people are finding interesting and that are resonating with today's players. So that to me is the work that leads to OD getting signed at Xbox, and also because Xbox is just, they want to do business with Kojima especially, but like, well, you know, there's even if OD never worked out, it would be them giving a Japanese developer a lot of rope, and that might be seen in Japan as like a good thing for wanting to work with Xbox or whatever else. Like they have other motives that probably come into some form of play here. We'll talk a little bit other than purely just publishing videos. They're always trying to improve their credibility in Japan. And Physint is interesting, you know, him working with Sony on a new thing and publishing that. I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, I think that you know, like again, if I were him, not that I would ever allow myself to feel good about anything, especially when it comes to making video games, because everything is such a fucking mess all the time. I would constantly feel like I was under the gun. But I do think that you probably do need to kind of sit back occasionally and go, huh, holy shit, yeah. We built a whole studio, and now we've got 3 properties. This is great. I used to only get to work on one, and when I tried to work on another one, they fucking killed it because they decided they hated my ass or what, you know, or whatever, right? So, I mean, even as someone who has not been a fan of Death Stranding, like, good on him, dude. To be able to kind of continue to carve out ways for his team to continue to make games and not get trapped in another IP and make sequels for it forever and be able to try different things. Like, I think that's pretty fucking neat. And good on him for navigating this insane landscape and finding a way to make all of that possible. So yeah. Sam from the Northern Hemisphere writes in and says, is it time to remake Far Cry 2? That's it. Well, what do you think? Is it time to remake Far Cry 2? No, a remake of Far Cry 2, if you were to try to actually remake Far Cry 2 modernly, I think if you were to sit down and say, let's make Far Cry 2 again, you would be too tempted to modernize it in ways that would take all of the interesting things out of the game. If you were to remake Far Cry 2, you would remake it to be more like Far Cry 3 or Far Cry 4 or Far Cry 5 or whatever. And you would probably smooth over too many of that game's rough edges, and fuck it all up. You would sit down and you would look at it as a designer or something and go like, these guns jam too often. These grenades don't need to roll downhill. What is that? I feel like the cuts you would make to it would probably fuck up way too much of it to work. And that's giving whatever mystery made up people are taking on this task, we're giving them zero credit, right? Because presumably if you wanted to remake Far Cry 2, it's because you actually like and care about Far Cry 2. However, I think if you just re-released Far Cry 2, if you cleaned up Far Cry 2 and re-released it, I don't think today's players would find it any more exciting than they did then. And so I think that there would be a bad project to take on in that sense. And I think if you sat down and said, let's try to make Far Cry 2 let's try to make it something that more people could get into, that would be the thing that would fuck it all up. So I'll underscore this as to say, I don't especially like Far Cry 2 for those reasons. But also, I don't think that you should make a version of Far Cry 2 that I like, because that's what Far Cry 3 was. Far Cry 3 was the game where they sat down and said, like, hey, these guns jam too much. And we need to burn some weed fields, whatever, right? But they did that. The cleaned up Far Cry 2 experience exists in the theme park open world of Far Cry's 3 and 4, and I guess Blood Dragon, if you want to. And I think those games are great, but for entirely different reasons than why people like Far Cry 2. So, I don't know. They should not remake Far Cry 2. I think you should, if you have been interested in survival, crafting, whatever, can we call them craftal games now? Survival crafting games? Can we just call them craftal games? Probably not. Can we call them crafting games? Definitely not. Anyway. Far Cry 2 belongs in that. If you like that style of game and never played Far Cry 2, yeah, if you want Rust without the nudity and fucking bullshit. Okay, some of the bullshit. Then maybe Far Cry 2 is up your alley. I don't know. Yeah, Far Cry 2 is it's a weirdly particular thing that it would not be worth. You would get nothing out of a remake. There would be no reason to do it. JP from Maryland writes in and says, you often seem surprised to learn that people still play Overwatch. Sometimes I'm surprised that I still play Overwatch. But my question is, what should I play instead? I know you're not your thing, but I like hero shooters, or at least this one with all the different abilities and interactions. I like the team coordination. I like the look. I'm also a fan of playing support roles. Marvel Rivals sort of did all this, but I prefer first person over third person. The gameplay never left me feeling satisfied, and I'm completely sick of being bombarded with Marvel characters from all angles. I still play plenty of other games, new and old, but Overwatch is a nice comfort food thing to default to with friends. Is there something better in a similar vein that I've been missing out on? Yes. I'm going to go with the chat's response here. Let me tell you about Team Fortress 2.
Everything from the world.
No. Not Team Fortress 2. Dat Asuna in the chat says Megabonk is the hero shooter of choice for me because it's so unlike most of them, which is the nicest thing I've heard anyone say about Megabonk since it came out. I have Megabonk installed and I keep waiting for an announcement to say it's going to shut down. Just feels like the sort of thing that is not, I don't know. Yeah, some people saying Deadlock, some people saying TF2, but those are not direct analogs to. Yes, Zorgia with the actual answer. Tell this person to play Foam Stars. Have you heard the gospel of Foam Stars? Yeah, I don't know, man. Some people got way into Valorant. Some people got into like Paladins for a little bit. Some people. Marvel Rivals feels like the game that kind of came along and really sucked that up. I mean, yeah, if you want to run a private server, you could maybe see if anyone figured out a private server for Conquered. It's kind of similar, but whatever. If you like Overwatch, play Overwatch. When I say that I'm surprised that people still play Overwatch, it's because like the only words I ever hear anyone speak about Overwatch are how fucking done Overwatch is. And like, oh, these changes they made it even worse. Like, no, I never hear anyone satisfied. This is the first person I've heard say that they are. You don't even necessarily sound satisfied, actually. But you know. And you could say the same thing about any kind of sufficiently mature multiplayer game of any kind, right? You know, like most of the talk about Dota is probably people very mad at Dota. The only happy competitive multiplayer game out there, the only truly happy fan base out there, Pokemon Unite. No, I don't know. People probably hate Pokemon Unite.
I blame everybody else.
But yeah, I don't know. Play Overwatch. Play Overwatch, I guess. No, but yeah, seriously, like a lot of people are probably still playing Overwatch. I don't know how you could go look at a Steam chart and try to work our way into what the numbers look like, but you know, it's available on so many different platforms. It's kind of hard to go to whatever. But yeah, man, I don't know. Like, maybe there's something to be said about the generally negative nature about most discussion about games, because people who are happy about a game are just fucking playing it, you know? And maybe they're on a Discord with their friends talking about, you know, they're on a text group with their friends talking about fucking Pokemon Unite strategies. What happened? How did this happen to me? All right. Anyway. Derek from DC writes in, I'm thinking about getting a RetroTink 4K to pair with my Mister to get better scaling. Is the scaling noticeably better than what the Mister offers? You've mentioned that the CRT shaders are good, which would be a bonus since my childhood CRT needs a tune-up. So the RetroTink is very expensive. The RetroTink 4K. And there is a version of it that is less expensive. The CE. But it is still $475. Now, that said, the $475 RetroTink 4K CE is noticeably cheaper than the $750 RetroTink 4K Pro. I will say, as someone who has been a Mister user for a good long time, you don't need a RetroTink to play the Mister. The Mister has HDMI out. It is fairly low latency. It has options in there for a few different sync options to work with the latency. It is sufficient on its own. But using direct video on the Mister and piping that out into a RetroTink and scaling that up to 4K, because the Mister can only output it can only safely output at 1080p. So at some point you're asking your television to scale it or whatever. There are some opportunities for you to run some Mr. cores at 1440p, but it's generally not. It's not something you can always do across the board. I would probably not recommend a RetroTink 4K if you only use a Mister. If you are a person who is likely to also be in possession of some other old consoles and you need a way to hook those up and you want a really great scaler to work with, you know, like I have a Saturn with a SCART cable and I can plug all that in. I have a PC Engine Turbo Duo R that's been RGB modded with a SCART cable, and it looks fucking awesome when you plug all that shit in, and the latency is super low. And yeah, when you turn on the CRT filters, like the RetroTink 4K has had the first CRT filters that I've felt were actually good and worth using. However, since I run my Mister through capture hardware and all this other stuff, you can't capture them with the shaders, the CRT shaders and filters and stuff turned on because it's all fucked up. It's weird, but and so that's kind of the downfall of that. It's awesome. I really like it. I feel very satisfied with it. It is $750. It is $750. The Mister can already output at 1080p. You don't need this. But again, if you have a few other devices, and it only takes a few. Like I use the RetroTink to hook my CDI up to my television, because it also can take, S-video and composite and all this other stuff. And it's not the best output I could get out of a CDI. If I had a different model, I think it would do RGB out, and I could get, or I could mod it. There's holes you could jump through, if you really want to get crazy with this stuff. But if you're hooking up old machines occasionally, the RetroTink is a great way to do that. The stuff with the Mister is awesome. It will automatically detect what core is being run on the Mister, and it can load profiles based on that, so you can set it all up exactly how you like it and have it automatically switch to that when you load it. It's fucking cool. It's super fucking cool. But dog, it is $750 fucking dollars. It is crazy. That is a lot of money.
Diva.
So make sure that you know that. Make sure you just try to remember that, like, this thing is not necessarily specifically built for the Mister, and the Mister is damn good on its own. And that's where, like, if that is all worth $750 to you, then it's fucking cool. But I'm able to feel a lot better about the purchase overall because I can hook my Saturn up to it. I hook my 3DO up to it. I can hook these other systems up to it as well. If you're not in a boat where you're ever going to be doing that sort of stuff, I think the RetroTink starts to get real crazy. The cheaper version of the RetroTink, the CE, I think it does. I forget what the differences are between the two models. Okay, there's a blog post here. So the CE, which is $475, has all of the same input ports, so you can still plug as much into it. I think it's got a smaller FPGA in it. Yeah, so it cannot rotate. So the Mister has some arcade cores that run on vertical monitors, and so you could use the RetroTink to rotate them, because if you're just spitting an analog signal out of the Mister, which is how you tend to hook this up, you would need the RetroTink to rotate it. Unless you want to physically rotate your screen, which, believe me, I wish I was in a position to do, but I am not.
Okay, I'm gonna see what I can dig up.
It does not do de-interlacing as well as the full model, which means if you were hooking a Saturn up to it, that probably would not be ideal. It only has like a basic level of black frame insertion. It does not have any XBR smoothing. It doesn't have 3D comb filtering for composite video. Yeah, so there's, you know, there's some changes to the CE that, depending on what you're trying to hook up to it and what you're trying to do with it, may or may not affect you. So, you know, maybe you could get by with the $475 version. $475, by the way, still a lot of money. So you know, again, I would think long and hard before making that purchase. The RetroTink 4K Pro is the most awesome one of these I've ever encountered. You know, and I've messed around with Frame Meisters and OSSCs and, you know, even earlier RetroTinks and all that sort of stuff. It's fucking rad. But again, don't do this unless you have enough different hardware and enough different need for this sort of stuff to really take full advantage of it. I feel like sometimes I am not taking full advantage of it because as more and more platforms get emulated well, whether it's by the Mister or elsewhere, I'm finding myself using that stuff more frequently than the real hardware. And so, like I unhooked I have a real Saturn sitting right here. It is completely unhooked under this pile of walkie-talkies and this pile of cop radios I bought. Under this pile of Chinese radios I purchased. Because I needed to be able to hear, well, because there was a fire and I wanted to be able to hear what the firefighters were saying to each other. So I got a couple of Baofangs a while ago, and then while the fire was happening, I was like, I wonder if there's anything better than these Baofangs out there. And then I saw an article saying like, oh, those were cool, but these Quan Shangs are where it's at. You need to get this Quan Shang, son. And so it was $30, and so now I have this Quan Shang. Supposedly you can flash custom firmware onto it, but the cable I have for doing that doesn't seem to work, so that was stupid. Anyway. Don't buy a RetroTink. Don't buy a RetroTink unless you really, really want one. I have not been like anything less than satisfied with it. It has been cool as fuck every time I've had to do anything with it. But the number of times I've had to do something with it has not been as many as maybe it's great. It's fucking awesome. I really want to, and my fucking VCR broke, man. I put a dirty tape in my VCR, and my VCR is all filthed up. And I have head cleaning tapes, and I bought some more VHS head cleaner, the real stuff, not the other stuff, not the video head cleaner that you're getting at the weird stores, actual video head cleaner for cleaning actual VCRs. But it didn't work. I don't know. Like this VCR is just fucking hosed now. I don't know. Maybe I need to take it apart and try to clean the heads in a more direct fashion. You can't even get the good video head cleaner off the internet anymore. They crack down on it. Which I think is probably the right thing to do. Whatever. Don't huff things. I don't know. Whatever. So I probably need to buy a new VCR or figure out a way to fix this one. And that's frustrating. Because I have a bunch of tapes that I want to capture, and I was going, and I can run them. Basically, I can plug, component out of the VCR into the RetroTink and capture these tapes like upscaled at 4K if I wanted to. Probably not the right move. Probably just capture them at native resolution and work with them that way, I would think. But I don't know what the right answer is there. But there are a bunch of profiles and things for the RetroTink specifically for viewing and capturing VHS tapes, and I want to do that. because I have a bunch of tapes that I want to digitize, and there's a bunch of tapes that I don't even know what's on them. Like, that was a byproduct of going through the garage. There's like just a ton of shit out there that I'm like, okay, I want to get rid of all of these tapes, but I know some of them have crazy shit on them that I can't get any other way, or, you know, like stuff that I've shot myself or whatever that I want to preserve. And now I just need to go through all the tapes and see which ones are which. And I found some really disgusting tapes. Before the VCR broke, I found a lot of filthy tapes. Only one broke my VCR, though. David writes in, I saw these making the rounds. I have these out in the garage, or maybe they already went to the Video Game History Foundation, but I have this press release. I have this press release that Sony sent out around the time of the release of the PlayStation 2. It's a press release full of quotes from celebrities. It is literally SCEA PlayStation 2 celebrity testimonials. And it's a bunch of quotes from famous people. What was sent my way is just the endorsement parts of it, so I don't know what year. Okay, this was 2002. And I literally have this press release sitting out in the garage. I think I posted some like bad pictures of it before, but these are pretty good scans of it. Matthew Perry, actor on Friends, says, I used to have a social life, go on dates, go to dinner parties, have a job. Now all I do is sit in a big chair and play PlayStation 2. I never leave my house. My friends have wondered what happened to me. Howard Hughes must have had one of these. David Arquette says, who was an actor in Scream 3, according to this. PlayStation 2 is to the gaming world what the computer was to the typewriter. It's not just an entertainment luxury, but a necessity. Luke Wilson, actor Charlie's Angels, freedom from everyday life can only mean one thing, the arrival of PlayStation 2. Sandra Bullock, actress Miss Congeniality, says, PlayStation 2 is the only place where I can legally explode things and not harm anyone. Yeah, it's an interesting... P. Diddy, rapper, says, no, comma, doubt I... no, comma, doubt I am a, in brackets, PlayStation 2 fan. My kids and I play together. Snoop Dogg, rapper slash actor, The Wash. The rush to get the new PlayStation 2 is more out of control than the Cabbage Patch Kids. I want my music on there. I want it to be Snoop Dogg and PlayStation 2. Congratulations, Snoop Dogg. You made it. Dogs Turismo 3. Justin Timberlake, singer from NSYNC, says, I play PlayStation 2 all the time, not just on the road. The play action is really easy and has the best graphics. Vin Diesel, actor, The Fast and the Furious. If I'm not playing Sony PlayStation or rereading a classic or watching a foreign film, ... my friends and I get on the internet and find out who I'm dating, and it's always hysterical. Wayne Brady, comedian slash actor. Whose line is it anyway? I love my PlayStation 2. I'm all over my PS2. I tour so much now doing my improv act that it's great because my wife doesn't let me play games at home, so I play them in the hotel room. Yeah, I don't know. These are all real silly. See if any of these other ones. Dave Matthews, the singer of Dave Matthews Band. The band is so into PlayStation 2, I can't imagine being on the road without it. Our lounge on the bus is dedicated to PlayStation 2. He then attempted to scat. Fuck you, Dave Matthews. Jimmy Fallon, actor, Saturday Night Live. The PlayStation 2 is sweet. The new Madden game sounds insane. I want to play it now. I'm also excited about playing over the internet. If they make an Olympic game, it will be awesome to actually play someone in China. Too much fun. Great. Great.
Gravity check. You happy, man?
Let's see here. Eric Michael Estrada, singer from O-Town. I'm not going to read the quote. It's O-Town. Nick Lachey, singer 98 Degrees. I know we're going to burn through the first PlayStation 2 unit on the first leg of the tour. Simon Rex, actor Jack and Jill. That's right, Dirt Nasty himself weighed in. Incredible fast graphics that would make Mario run for the hills. If my friends thought I spent a lot of time on PlayStation, just wait until PlayStation 2 comes out. Norman Reedus, actor/model from Gossip. I love playing the PlayStation 2. It's like meditation. Jimmy Kimmel, host of The Man Show. My son is 8 years old and it keeps him... My son is 8 years old and is hooked up like an IV to the PlayStation 2. It keeps him busy. These are not positive things. When you say, I think we're going to burn out the first PlayStation 2 on the first leg of the tour, that's not a good quote. Anyway, there was a question associated with this from David from York in the UK. As well as being a fun time capsule, I was wondering, when do you think celebrities endorsing video games lost value? I feel like everyone sees through endorsements now, but when did we as a society stop caring what Forrest Whitaker thinks of the latest gaming hardware? Or did PR firms always overestimate their value? So this stuff, this specific thing, Sony really leaned into this around this time. And I've talked about it before, where they had like a launch party for the PS2 in LA that they had their like, here's our launch party for like the gaming media and like game people. And then here's our celebrity party. I think it was always referred to as like, oh, we're having a celebrity party. And from people who were in video games, were kind of like rolling their eyes, just like, we're going to do a fucking red carpet with a step and repeat, and we're going to give all these people fucking goodie bags with PS2 in them, and, the paparazzi will come out and take pictures of it, and it'll put the PlayStation 2 in front of an audience that maybe hasn't seen it yet. It's always like, oh, okay, well, this'll end up in People magazine, and look, he's looking at the PlayStation 2. That's why all of these events always happen. That's why you end up like David Cross and Bob Odenkirk playing fucking GameCube games or whatever, is they would try to have these events specifically so that photographers would take pictures of these people near and around gaming hardware so that they could end up being licensed to show up in fucking the Weekly World, I don't know, the Inquirer, or, whatever gossip shit was around at the time. And these quotes were just another part of that, another kind of attempt to get people to talk about the PlayStation in a way that it wasn't getting talked about before, right? Because they already, like people that know about video games, of course they already knew that a PlayStation 2 was coming out. But they're trying to find ways to get the word out to a wider audience about this thing. And so they invite a bunch of people to this thing that they think are likely to show up. They probably pay some segment of those people to appear. But, the lower rung people are just like, oh, if I go, I'll get a free PS2. Fucking awesome. Yeah, I'm there. We're going. Yeah. And they bring their entourage and try to steal as many gift bags on their way out as they can. That's just how they approached that stuff. And I was invited to the PlayStation 2 or 3. Probably. I guess it had to have been 2. I believe I went to the celebrity party for the... No, it would have been the PS... Yes. Oh, man, I don't know. It was either PS2 or PS3. I cannot remember exactly which one it was now. But I did go to one of these celebrity party type things, and it was fun because there was a very, very small handful of people who were from games there, either writing about games or PR people or whatever. It was a pretty small group of us who knew each other and were off in the corner going like, it's the South Park guys. Oh, look at that. Huh. And this is, I think I've told the story before, where like the South Park guys showed up in like American flag jumpsuits and were just fucking wrecked. I don't know on what, but they were dancing in a way that was not just drunk. I don't know. Yeah, so this was, was this around Team America? So that would have been, I guess that would have had to have been PlayStation 3, right? Team America is, that's 2004, so maybe that was the run-up to, maybe that was before Team America was out. They were fucked up. Was it PSP? I don't think it was PSP. Because PSP, I don't think it was PSP. But the hardware was not, the hardware didn't matter. It was just like, I had to fly down to LA and go to this party and then turn around and fly back. And there was nothing, there were some games there, but we had all the games. We were reviewing console stuff already, so, we had all that shit. So it wasn't, it was just kind of whatever. But Sony was real big on that stuff for a little while there. And they would have that specific party, and they would do it. They would have them again. It wasn't always just tied to a launch, but generally it was tied to a launch because they were trying to get the word out about a new thing. And I remember, it was a parking garage that they had taken over. This was at a time when Sony was doing, this was after the E3 parking garage where they were broadcasting Gran Turismo onto the building across the street, which was pretty fucking neat. They were big on like, we're going to rent out a parking garage and turn it into a multi-story party. Like that was just a thing for a while. I don't know what. It was fucking. It was fine. It was a good way to have a party. The weather was nice. Why not? But like you're standing on the roof of a parking garage that they have set a bunch of makeshift bars at. And as the party got later and later, some of those bars became unattended because there were fewer people there, so the bartenders just abandoned them to go where more of the people were. And so we just took over one of those, like myself and Matt Atwood, who's still in video games and has been for a very long time. He's the only other person I remember being there, but it was a small handful of us who were like video game people. And we just took over one of those bars for ourselves and just started making ourselves drinks. And it was fun. It was fun. It was good. It was good. I had to get on a plane the next day. That was less fun. But yeah, the celebrity endorsement thing is always just fucking crazy. But you see why they would do it. When did this stop mattering? I don't know, man. I feel like the internet, there's a certain... You say you feel like everyone sees through endorsements now, but I don't think so, man. I feel like just the level of people that do the endorsing has come way down, right? To where now you've got people endorsing screwdrivers on the TikTok shop, and they're making videos about sweatshirts that you can buy, and like all this other stuff. Like everyone is endorsing shit all the time. You know what I mean? And so I think that I don't know. I don't know that everyone sees through endorsements the way that you maybe wish that they did. I think celebrity endorsements for people who are like, especially this stuff, like these quotes are so dumb. Vincent Pastore, actor, After the Storm and Sopranos. I am a big PlayStation 2 fan. I am into it. Tia Carrere, actress from Wayne's World. Actually, I have to admit to jumping to the head of the line in Canada to get a couple of PlayStation 2s for Christmas. I was part of the craze. Now I want one for me. Like that stuff, like who cares? It's like, oh, well, Tia Carrere. If Adrian Brody, this quote from Adrian Brody is actually perfect. Adrian Brody, actor, Dummy, which is the name of a thing he was acting in. It's not just I don't even have a TV, but I'm going to get one and go crazy with PlayStation 2. I don't even have a TV. He had to slide that in there. Had to let you know. Man, I don't even fucking have a TV. But I'm going to get one so I can go crazy with a PlayStation 2. Oh, Adrian Brody. Adrian Brody. Adrian Brody. Adrian Brody. All right, last question here. Brian from Nebraska says, my father, age 56, wants to spend quality time with me, age 33, and wants to venture into the world of video games. The only video games my dad has played are Galaga and Pac-Man, and hasn't played any video games in the third dimension. What is a good branching off point to help him ease into modern gaming? Are there any good multiplayer games for a 56-year-old to handle? Also, I helped him install Steam on his computer, so any Steam game will do. Man. That's not a bad idea. Yeah. Ellen Tom says Portal. Portal's maybe not a bad idea because it is like so. There's a thing, you know, if you haven't played any games that are first person or three-dimensional in nature, polygonal, whatever, you know, there's a certain part of that where you have to get used to just the movement, and especially, you know. Well, you're playing on a computer, so presumably you've got a mouse and keyboard as well as a controller, I guess. So, Portal. I would think about games that would get you acclimated to using a modern video game controller. I think that is probably the stuff I would look for. Mouse and keyboard, sure, that's viable as well, but it's a different, weirder skill. Another Jamie says, Factorio, old guys love trains. Yeah. That might not be the worst idea. But I was going to say Vampire Survivors. Like, you know, like thinking about Galaga and Pac-Man, like playing a modern game, like Vampire Survivors is maybe not the most modernist of modern games. But it is something that I think would be identifiable to someone who played old arcade games. As like, here's a 2D thing. You might recognize it as this is just Robotron, but now you don't even have to shoot. So just walk around and dodge this stuff. I think that might be an interesting starting point. I always felt like XCOM was a really good game for people who like maybe are ready to think strategically but aren't necessarily big game players, because it's like it's a knowable rule set. Like they, you know, even if they're lying about it, they display the percentages on screen for you, and you are able to kind of wrap your head around the battlefield a little bit. But yeah, Portal's an interesting one because I think it would get you up to speed on modern game controls, while also not being a hyper fast action game. You know, you can look around and point at a thing and shoot a portal and go there. Like there are points in Portal where you need to be a little more timing based and a little faster than others, but yeah, part of it is, yeah, what you know, does he have any interests in role playing? You know, does your father have any interests in role playing? You know, are you in, you know, is he maybe interested in playing something that is turn-based combat and, you know, like all of that, or is he just looking for more action? You could always just, you know, if he likes Pac-Man or knows Pac-Man, you could always sit him down with some Pac-Man Championship Edition DX. Say, check this shit out. This will fucking blow your wig back, man. The real shit. I don't know, just install Tarkov and walk away. He'll either bounce off it immediately or become the worst kind of insufferable sicko you've ever known.
Hey, move it, idiot!
Heaven better be hermetically sealed.
You know? Like, you'll either come back and find that he hasn't turned the computer on more than once or twice since you left, or you will find him in front of it surrounded by pizza boxes, just filthy dirty, just fucking filthy.
Gonna have to let this one slide, man. Got too much shit on my plate.
And find that he has somehow lost his home. Yeah, they're coming to take the house. Don't worry about it, though. I'm gonna get it back right here, right now. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's it's hard to think of, like, you know, what's the path in for someone. Like the knowledge of Galaga and Pac-Man is almost like a detriment in a weird way too. I wonder, like, 'cause it's throwing me off a little bit. But I don't know. I would maybe start with like something like a Vampire Survivors, just to like get used to holding a modern controller, or using the WASD keys on a keyboard. I guess if you want to play that way, you're some kind of lunatic. And maybe kind of go from there. But I think it depends on, does he have the patience to play Civ or not? Right? Does he have the patience to play a game like that or no? You know? And kind of go from there. Because I think that's going to dictate whether you're like trying to get him into, you know, something resembling modern action games, or if you're going to say, hey, man, you got a thinking man's brain on you. Go ahead and, you know, stare at fucking these insane menus for a long time. And here's a copy of Baldur's Gate 3. Good luck. You know? Or something, that's going to be more cerebral or something. Yeah, someone says Blueprints. Like, yeah, maybe. Yeah, EVE Online. Yeah. Same deal as Tarkov with EVE Online. You come back and either they like loaded it up twice and have no idea what's going on, or like you go over to his house and discover that he's not there because he's flown halfway around the world to cut someone's power. Like, all right, it's 1,700 hours. I'm going to cut this guy's power. You fucking take his whole corporation over, okay? We're going to work together on this one. Star Citizen. Someone on Blue Sky, when I was talking about EA IP potentially being up for grabs in a handful of years here when the company fails.
See ya, bro.
Someone said, oh, it's a great opportunity for Chris Roberts to get his hands on the Wing Commander IP. And I thought, oh man, that's really cool, because that will be a good reason for them to push Star Citizen back for another 12 years. We've got to integrate. It's going to take a long time to rename this guy Maniac, so we are pushing back with a 1.0 release of Squadron fucking whatever to integrate the Wing Commander IP. Oh God. Oh God. Anyway.
Hey there, chula.
I also got a really lengthy email from a developer in Spain. Or someone in Spain that I think is.
Hello.
What's up?
Is a game, maybe not, I don't know. But a lengthy thing about kind of the shader stutter and some of the other kind of Unreal Engine stuff that I will take a look at, and maybe we'll get back into that a little bit next week. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here. Thanks everybody for listening. I'll be back on Wednesday to, hang out and play some games and all of that sort of stuff. Of course, podcast is every Tuesday, and every Friday we rank 8-bit Nintendo games. We are well over the 600 game mark there, and so it's tempting to say we're on the home stretch, but there's still a lot of video games left to rank. So we ranked King's Quest V last Friday. King's Quest V got a port to the NES, which seems like an insane sentence to say, but it's true. They put King's Quest V on the fucking NES. I don't understand why. Well, I mean, I think I understand the business reasons why, but like, it's ridiculous. Anyway, I will see you all in the future. Have a good rest of your week, and take care.